Part 37. Taking stock of the top 10 golden fingers, the protagonist of Wanjie went crazy. Author, Chirp. Chapter 361. At this time, countless people looked at the picture and felt their scalps numb. Tisk, this Li Huang's faith is gone, his pursuit is gone, and in the end, he can only return to dust and dust to dust. Is it okay to laugh to death, ashes to ashes, dust to dust? By the way, what the hell is Danyangzi? 3 flowers gathered at the top. Become an immortal? 3 flowers gathered at the top, 3 heads? To become an immortal means to grow feathers in your body? Worry, what the hell kind of explanation is this? Damn it, this Danyangzi, is this a Taoist trick? Is this the Taoist cultivating immortality? I'm so numb. I can't understand it at all, this Danyangzi, his. Are the eggs gone? Or has he really become an immortal? The sheep's eggs may really be gone. Damn it, they were all blown up and scattered everywhere. How is it possible that they are still alive? I was really dumbfounded. Is this the gathering of 3 flowers? Too abstract. I've realized it, Master Tao, I've realized it too. Ha ha ha, I gradually understood everything, gradually understood everything. It's over, again on, pull it away. At this time, everyone was discussing. At the same time, in a great world composed of 1,000 worlds. This is it, 3 flowers gathering at the top. Become an immortal. Li Changshao looked at the Dao Golden List in a daze, recalling everything he had seen before, and felt his scalp numb. Is this how you understand the gathering of 3 flowers? Is this how you understand becoming an immortal? Why the hell don't I know? I, a person who has become an immortal, don't even know. How can I really ask others to cultivate something so abstract? Senior brother, this, if I become an immortal, I won't become like this, right? Lingyi was obviously frightened by 9:30, and her little face was pale. When Li Changshao thought of Lingyi becoming an immortal, with 3 heads on her head, white ribbons floating around her body, and feathers growing all over her body, I couldn't help but twitch the corner of my mouth. Don't worry, if you really become like that, you will become a prehistoric alien species, Li Changshao suddenly smiled and said. Senior brother, Lingyi was so angry that she put her hands on her hips and was very dissatisfied. Ha ha ha, Li Changshao smiled. However, he shook his head in his heart. If Lingyi can really become like that, it can only be said that the prehistoric world has also been polluted. Well, that is definitely impossible. At the same time, in the blue and white world. This piece of shit, Mr. Go looked at the Dao Gold List, and his smoking hand was shaking. I was really shocked by Danyangzi in that picture. He never expected that Danyangzi would be so deformed. His scalp was numb. This world is indeed weird, Mo Kayang's voice came from behind Mr. Go. Master Go turned his head, looked at Mo Kayang, and raised his eyebrows slightly. Where is Li Jing? The Canaan minister is making arrangements. Mo Kayang shook his head and then said, tell me, is this Danyangzi dead? Probably, dead, Master Go asked with some confusion. Mo Kayang frowned, and for a moment he didn't know what to say. After a long time, he asked, by the way, what is Li Huang's conceptual ability? This. Master Go was stunned for a moment, then frowned and began to think about it, but after thinking about it for a long time, he couldn't think of a reason. I don't know, I don't seem to see any conceptual abilities in him. Well, maybe it appeared, but Li Huang didn't know about it? Maybe, it's that ability to make false come true, Mo Kayang suddenly said. Master Go raised his eyebrows slightly. The normal thinking of club members can naturally find abnormalities in all kinds of chaos. However, after watching the whole process, Mr. Go felt that the world was weird, aberrant, and hummed up. He really couldn't figure out the reason for it. On the other hand, Mo Kyung did not continue to watch, and then he said this. Not to mention, if it is really a conceptual ability, it would even look like the fake becomes the real thing. However, this is not very clear. Keep reading, you can always tell. Master Go blew out his smoke and said quietly. At this moment, as countless people from all over the world were discussing and sighing, at the same time, they continued to look at the Dao Golden List. Soon, everyone saw that Li Huang had gone back and was lying on the bed waiting to die. But those medicine guides found Li Huang again, and asked Li Huang to follow them with pleading expressions. In the end, Li Huang followed them away. Maybe he had a mental illness and mistook Bai Ling Miao for Yang Na, or maybe it was because he had a mental illness. Bai Ling Miao's kindness and persistence moved him. In short, in the end, Li Huang took the last words on the note and led his junior brothers to start searching in Qingfeng Temple. He wanted to completely search this place. You definitely need dry food. At the same time, I also need some pills. Li Huang even went to find He Tai Sui. This thing was very important and was the key to suppressing his hallucinations. In the end, Li Huang even went to Daniang's residence. Then, Li Huang saw the three disciples here who were both injured. Li Huang curled his lips and picked up their long swords. It was better to have a sword than to use bare hands. In the end, Li Huang also took the heavenly book away. Although this heavenly book is not some kind of immortal cultivation technique, it is nonsense, but this thing is very hard. Therefore, this heavenly book has become Li Huang's trophy. After taking these, a group of geniuses followed on the road. Immediately afterwards, the screen continued to rotate, and Li Huang and his party met a group of opera troops. Singing yin opera, meeting the happy gods of the immortal family and dancing masters. The thrills and excitement of this world are no less exciting than those of other worlds. Li Huang and his party rushed all the way to the city. There is a Zhen temple in Zijing City. It is said that this Zhen temple is very efficacious, which is called a prosperous incense. These three words, Zhen temple, instantly attracted Li Huang. He still remembered that Zhenkan had said before that Daniangzi and the others were hunted down by the monks from Zhen temple. Come to think of it, this monk from Zhen temple should be the righteous path of this world, right? Regarding the thrills and excitement of this world, Li Huang has already experienced it and does not want to experience it again. If he could get help from these famous and righteous people, he would be happy. Moreover, the most important thing is that when he was fighting with the god of joy, he heard Daniangzi's voice. He suspected that Daniangzi was not dead at all, or had turned into something else. Therefore, he came here just to ask these monks for help and see if he could completely eliminate Daniangzi. Finally, Li Huang arrived at Zhen Temple. Looking at the upright and prosperous Zhen Temple, Li Huang smiled for a long time, and then went to find a monk. The monk looked extremely rich. Oh, that was called the majestic treasure. One look at Li Huang's Taoist robe, and I felt that Li Huang was different from ordinary people. He definitely didn't come here to burn incense and worship Buddha. Therefore, Li Huang was invited to the side door of the side hall and under a brilliant yellow ginkgo tree. There was a monk there, and Li Huang was brought here. Looking at the monk in front of him, Li Huang thought for a while and said bluntly, Daniangzi is dead. Snap! In an instant, the rosary beads in the monk's hand fell. The monk turned his head in astonishment and looked at Li Huang with some surprise. Is that awesome old Taoist really dead? Good, Li Huang nodded and secretly felt that he was in the right place. Okay, this matter is very important, please come to me one by one, the monk asked. Li Huang naturally knew everything, but he ignored the fact that he took the Book of Heaven, and then told the rest. So, Master, can Daniangzi in that situation really become an immortal? Li Huang frowned and asked. Before, when he was dealing with the god of joy, Danyang's baby really startled him. But, the monk frowned and couldn't help asking Donor, did Danyang really hear that? Are you talking in your ear? Well, absolutely true. Although I often have hallucinations, the god of joy also appears abnormal, which means that Danyang's must be real, Li Huang said solemnly. Moreover, it was not just as simple as talking. At that time, Li Huang's condition was very urgent, and the god of joy seemed to be about to crawl out of the darkness, but it seemed to be pulled by something. Then accompanied hearing that voice, who is it if it's not Danyang's? For this, the monk could only tell the abbot. Let the abbot talk to Li Huang. Soon, Li Huang arrived at the so-called Dakshin palace and in front of the abbot. The abbot was dressed extremely luxuriously, looks kind-hearted, like a rich monk. Anyway, the cassocks and hats on his body are all shining with gold. Amitabha, I am wise and polite. Abbot Xinhui turned his head, looked at Li Huang, clasped his hands together, and recited the Buddha's name. Xianyang, I have met the abbot. Li Huang saluted, and immediately sat opposite the abbot. Before Li Huang could ask questions about Danyang's, he was interrupted by the monk. Master Xianyang, do you know the 5 Buddhas in this hall? The abbot said, pointing to the 5 huge Buddha statues in the temple. Li Huang glanced at it for a few times and then shook his head. Just listen, the abbot Xinhui explained. The one in the middle is Vairocana Buddha in the Vajra world. The one in the east is Axi Buddha in the Xiangji world. The one in the south is Baozhong Buddha in the joyful world. The one in the west is Amitabha in the ultimate bliss world. Fa. The one in the north is the Buddha of the lotus world. Together they are called the 5 wisdoms Tathagata, the 5 wisdoms Tathagata. Li Huang frowned slightly and couldn't help but said, Abbot, Buddha, or something, we will talk about it later. I want to know now, what has become of this Danyang's? Abbot Xinhui looked at Li Huang, and immediately clasped his hands together and said calmly, he has become a Buddha. Li Huang? Tian Wanjie? Damn it, I was laughing so hard. This monk actually said that Danyang's became a Buddha. What the hell, are you kidding me? Can Danyang's become a Buddha? Rather than saying that he has become a Buddha, it is better to say that he has become some kind of evil spirit. What is there to say about becoming a Buddha? I can also accept becoming an immortal directly. After all, there are many immortals in this world who are crowing like chickens and stealing dogs. You died laughing and became a Buddha? I think this monk is also a fake monk, with no real ability at all. Gee, is this what he understands as the 5 wisdoms Tathagata? Tisk, cowhide, I can only say cowhide. At this time, countless people sighed with emotion, watching everything that happened in the Dao Golden List. At this time, in the picture, Li Huang's face was confused, and then his scalp became numb. I dare to ask the master, how can a heinous bitch like him become a Buddha? Li Huang frowned. Amitabha. Abbot Xinhui said, what he is now does not depend on what he is. I have a Buddha in my heart. In my heart, he is a Buddha. Li Huang was irritated. Riddler, right? Riddler, get out of Gen Temple. Just listen, Abbot Xinhui continued. Donor, at this time, Danyang's escapes to Dakian. I think it doesn't matter what he is. What matters is what you think he is what he is. After all, the cause and effect is with you, not me. Li Huang was stunned for a moment, and then gradually understood. You mean, Danyang's has now become a shapeless, conceptual thing, similar to Mr. Yu. Of course. The old monk nodded. But why? I made up all the immortality techniques, and there are so many highly toxic substances. If you eat them, you should die immediately. Why could he turn into that kind of ghost? Li Huang couldn't figure it out even if he thought about it. However, Abbot Xinhui just shook his head. I don't know. Don't know? Li Huang frowned, and immediately asked directly, Abbot, is there any way to deal with Danyangzi? He came all the way, trying very hard to know if Danyangzi could be completely eliminated, otherwise, he wouldn't be able to sleep. The old monk thought for a while, and then took a look, and it seemed that he had cast some kind of with his magical power. Li Huang felt that the colors around him were several times more beautiful. His body was also light and airy. The old monk said that this matter was of great importance and needed to be discussed, and he was allowed to stay in the temple temporarily. But where could Li Huang live? There are friends outside. In this regard, the monk did not force him to stay. Li Huang came and went freely. Li Huang left quickly. He didn't know if he could believe him. At this time, he suddenly heard a shout, Taoist priest, I'm here. As soon as Li Huang turned his head, he saw an old beggar waving to him not far away. He met the old beggar on the road. He was a poor man who ate wild vegetables and stole tributes. But the old beggar also wanted to do the same. The monk wanted to do good deeds. Li Huang saw that the old beggar had no bad intentions. In the end, the old beggar followed them all the way here. And after the old beggar arrived at Zhen Temple, the monk from Zhen Temple really wanted to and Li Huang don't care. Since Zhen Temple is about to be taken over, this old monk can be considered as having a place to stay. When Li Huang leaves, he asks his fellow apprentices to inquire about the reputation and gossip of Zhen Temple. Wait for fellow apprentices to find out more about it. When they came back to talk about it, not to mention, the Zhen Temple they said was pretty good. It seemed to be pretty good. Regarding this, Li Huang finally made up his mind to go to Zhen Temple tomorrow. He wanted to completely eliminate Danyangzi. Taking stock of the top 10 golden fingers, the protagonist of Wanjie went crazy. Author, Chirp. Chapter 362. At this time, countless people watched what happened in the Dao Golden List. Zhen Temple. This monk from Zhen Temple should be regarded as a famous and upright sect in this world, right? I feel there is no such thing as a decent family in this world. It's so funny, it's because there are so many of you with dark hearts that you think everyone in the world is dark. Haha, what? Don't you like people from famous families? My heart is dirty, everything I look at is dirty. That's right, it's you people who have ruined the reputation of those of us who are righteous. At this time, countless people curled their lips, talked, and discussed. At this time, in the world of Daogui. Well, Li Huang frowned and looked at everything that happened in the Dao Golden List, from the Lu family class to the Yin opera, then meeting the master dancer, and then the god of joy. He took a deep breath, and his expression became solemn. At the same time, still looking around in surprise. Danyangzi, is he still alive? He never expected that Danyangzi was still alive. It's just living, and it's really affecting him. At this moment, his face was gloomy and terrifying. When he thought that Danyangzi was still alive, he felt uneasy, as if Danyangzi was reminding him somewhere. Not only him, but also the fellow brothers around him were a little surprised and confused after seeing everything that happened in the Dao Golden List, and their faces became very ugly. Obviously Danyangzi had a really big psychological impact on them. For a moment, everyone also became suspicious, looking around with a bit of uncertainty on their faces. But obviously, they couldn't see Danyangzi at all. Just saying that Danyangzi's current state is not something they can detect. In short, everyone now is no longer as relaxed as before. Everyone is very dignified. At the same time, in the blue and white world. This bitch is really not dead. Master Go looked at the Dao Gold List and snorted coldly, with some disdain. Tisk, this Danyangzi obviously has some weird abilities. Mo Kian clicked his tongue and marveled, becoming an immortal? 28 I don't know if this Danyangzi has become an immortal. Well, Judging from the status, it seems that he has become an immortal. But he has become an immortal, that's it? It's different from the immortality they imagined. Keep reading, Master Go shook his head. At this time, in the Dao Golden List, accompanied by countless people's discussions, the scene turned and it was seen that Li Huang returned to Zhen Temple again. According to Abbot Xinhui, it means that you need to hold a Purdue fast to achieve salvation for Danyangzi. Li Huang naturally had no objections to this. Abbot, let's start now, Li Huang said hurriedly. He wanted to kill Danyangzi now, but he didn't want to wait any longer. However, Abbot Xinhui said don't be impatient. Donor Xianyang, the cause and effect of Danyangzi is on you. Before doing this ritual, you still need to calm down. Meditation, Li Huang frowned. Amitba. Donor, your heart is very restless, your heart is sick. Abbot Xinhui spoke quietly. Unexpectedly, Li Huang glared and shouted in a low voice, I'm not sick. You're not sick. Why are you yelling? Those old monks looked at Li Huang meaningfully, with a playful smile on their lips. Li Huang took a deep breath, then looked at Abbot Xinhui, and asked in a low voice, dare you ask Abbot, how can we achieve meditation? Then, Abbot Xinhui gave Li Huang a sutra and asked him to recite it 3 times a day in the morning, noon, and evening. Li Huang felt a little surprised, so he just recited the sutra. Then, Li Huang stayed in Zhen Temple. After a few days, none of the monks at Zhen Temple did anything to him, and the scriptures seemed to be quite useful. At least, his sleep quality improved. It was another day and night, and Li Huang finished reading the scriptures. After that, I closed the book and started thinking about my next plan. When Danyangzi is eliminated in the ending, I will go find He Tai Sui. Well, if my condition stabilizes, I can live a stable life in this world. However, if you want to find He Tai Sui, strength is the most important thing. This world is full of dangers and dangers are everywhere. Only by improving your own strength can you live a stable life. At this moment, Li Huang suddenly caught a glimpse of a figure passing outside the door. Li Huang, his expression immediately became solemn and his eyes were cold and stern. Someone was watching him. This idea suddenly appeared in Li Huang's mind. Immediately, he stood up directly, walked to the door and opened the latch. The door opened a crack slightly, and Li Huang looked out through the crack. Looking, he could vaguely see a figure wearing a yellow monk's robe quickly slipping into the dark corridor. Li Huang thought for a moment, and without saying a word, he slowed down and followed. A sneaky figure in front, let's go, someone is following behind us furtively. Went through various corridors, and finally, Li Huang saw that the monk got into a crack in the door that was ajar. Li Huang thought for a while, and dipped his fingers into his saliva. Gently poked the window paper and looked inside. Then he discovered that he seemed to have made an own mistake. In that room, there was a woman who came to ask for a child, and the monk went to ask for a child, yes. The so-called gift of a child is nothing more than bullshit. Li Huang's face was a little ugly. He could see that in the room, the woman was blindfolded, and he could see many monks appearing, and then. This is the truth behind the efficacious wish for a child. Li Huang walked away with a dark expression. Damn, this place is really dirty. Isn't there a place to hurry up? Li Huang's face was very ugly, but he had no intention of meddling in other people's business. No matter how dirty this place was, it had nothing to do with him. He was just thinking about the day when the so-called Pudhu fast began. Time passed day by day, and Li Huang felt that when his mental state was getting better and better, the abbot sent someone to find him. He said that preparations for the Pudhu days had begun, and he hoped that he would not move around in the near future. Li Huang naturally nodded, and when he wanted to come, when would the Pudhu days come? The beginning was when he got rid of Danyangzi. He could just wait with peace of mind. However, at this moment. "Oh, Taoist priest, so you live here? Why don't you tell me?" A familiar figure appeared in front of Li Huang. It was the old beggar monk. Li Huang looked at the old beggar monk and smiled. "Monk, how are you doing now?" "Okay, very good. Now I have enough food and clothing every day, but I can't do any good deeds anymore, and I feel a little uncomfortable," the monk said, and immediately pointed to the monk's robe and said with a smile, "Taoist, look, how beautiful is this monk's robe, much better than what I wore before. New monk's robe. The old beggar monk's face is also clean, without any stains, and he looks much more normal. But, do you do good deeds?" Li Huang squinted, thinking of what he saw that day, and said, "Monk, from now on, just stay well. Although this temple is a bit dirty, at least you won't starve to death." The monk seemed to understand, but he didn't know why. He didn't know what Li Huang was talking about. However, he still smiled and said, "Come on, Taoist priest, I will show you the place where I work. That place is huge." The old monk was very interested. Li Huang was not interested, but he couldn't bear it. The monk dragged him away. Finally, he came to an open-air courtyard. There was an endless stream of clanging sounds and dust was flying. One by one, the monks were holding hammers and carving Buddha statues. This is the job of the old monk. Of course, the old monk is not carving, but moving stones. They are still useless stones. Li Huang shook his head secretly, and I know that these statues should be sold to those pilgrims. This Gen temple will actually make money. After experiencing everything that happened last time, Li Huang has no good impression of this Gen temple. Well, there is no bad feeling. This Gen temple still has some ability. If he can get rid of Danyangzi, that would be better than anything else. He is too lazy to care about those bullshit things. By the way, Taoist priest, that's not all, there are more ahead, the monk said, and took Li Huang to go shopping to see those Buddha statues. However, Li Huang had not taken a few steps, and suddenly he felt a little dazed, and even his body staggered a little. "Oh, Taoist priest, what's wrong with you?" When the old monk saw this, he hurried back to help him, with a look of concern on his face. "What happened?" Li Huang frowned. After he stood up, he felt that the previous abnormality had disappeared again. Really, he came in a hurry and left in a hurry. This is a bit strange. Got it? Forget it, keep walking. Li Huang shook his head and didn't care. However, he was just about to lift up his feet and follow. Suddenly, everything around him changed. The sound of the chisel hitting the stone became extremely weird and terrifying, like the sound of flesh colliding with each other. Snap! Li Huang turned his head and his expression immediately changed. But what he saw was that the previous stone statues had completely disappeared, replaced by mountains of white flesh. And those were all monks. They were like a pile of white maggots, squirming and extremely nauseated. This, Li Huang's eyes widened, and he subconsciously took a step back, looked up at the sky, and then turned around to look at those things. He found that it was not because he was dazzled, because no matter how he closed his eyes and opened them again, everything in front of him was still the same. Taoist priest, go quickly, the old monk was still talking excitedly. Obviously, he didn't realize what Li Huang saw. Li Huang took a deep breath and suppressed the feeling of nausea and vomiting. He wondered if he was sick again. He could only follow the monk silently. However, he passed a wide gate and entered another courtyard again. Looking up, his eyelids jumped. But what he saw was that there were still mountains of meat here. A pile. However, there are not only people in this mountain of meat, but also some other animals, such as pigs. They howl in pain and continue to sink in the mountain of meat. The monk's voice is still ringing. Look, these carved unicorns and stone lions look real. It would be great if I had this skill. Li Huang looked numbly at what was happening in front of him, his heart pounding wildly. Finally, under the pull of the old monk, he entered a main hall. The old monk pointed at the huge Buddha statue and said with a smile, "Look, such a big Buddha." Li Huang looked along the monk's fingers, and then, his pupils shrank and he was completely frozen in place. Then what the hell kind of Buddha is he? Then he is a monster composed of a large pool of creatures more than 20 meters high. It was a pink mountain of flesh, and its whole body was like a toad's back, covered with sticky plasma. Various organs protruded from the disgusting skin and were constantly squirming. The key is that this mountain of meat is also covered with various monks. Not just monks, but also women, and animals. Everything in front of him seemed to be challenging the limits of Li Huang's vision step by step. Not only challenging Li Huang, but also challenging everyone in the world who saw this scene. Drafted? Holy shit, what the hell did I see? Ugh, is this Gen Temple? I thought this Gen Temple was a famous and upright sect. The result, yikes. Disgusting, so humming disgusting, what the hell is this? But, the Gen Temple 497 in this world is simply an insult to Buddhism and to me, the Buddha. This poor monk must liberate these monsters. Damn it, can't this world be normal? Damn it, there are no decent families in this world. Hummed. It's over, I can no longer look directly at the Buddha statue. It's so scary and weird. Dirty, so damn dirty, for me to see. Ugh, this Gen Temple is even more demonic than mine. At this time, countless people in the world had extremely bad expressions. Seeing this scene, they almost vomited out their overnight meal. At this time, the screen was still flashing. Li Huang saw all this, his expression changed and changed. Damn it! He suddenly learned the truth about this world. There is no such thing as righteousness and evil in this world. The whole world might be so weird. He might be betrayed by Abbot Xinhui liar. What about Putadazai, that monk must be lying. No, you have to leave here. Strong thoughts emerged in Li Huang's mind. He noticed the truth, and took advantage of the fact that the monks hadn't realized that he had noticed the truth. If he didn't leave, then all we can do is wait for death. So, leave quickly. He left the hall quietly, but was blocked by a great monk. The monk was unusually tall. Li Huang stared at him and saw that the monk had a black tentacle emerged from his stuttering, like the color of the sea, dancing in the air. Master, is something wrong? Li Huang suppressed the discomfort, looked at the monk in front of him, and asked. But, donor, your heart is unclean. The monk recited the name of the Buddha and looked at Li Huang calmly. As soon as he said this, the squirming meat mountains around him stopped squirming instantly. The monks on the meat mountains also turned their heads and looked at him. Li Huang. Damn. Li Huang's scalp was numb. These guys, did they know that they had seen through the deception? His heart froze, and without saying a word, he slashed away with his sword. At the same time, he swallowed a mouthful of pills, kicked his feet hard, and, flying towards the earth wall. Boom! At the same time, a huge noise came from behind Li Huang. When Li Huang turned his head, he saw that the huge Buddha statue had broken through the door and rolled towards him. Li Huang's heart condensed and he ran quickly. He ran all the way to in the main hall, he still didn't believe it. How dare these monks show all this in front of the world? However, before he could reach the main entrance, he was stopped by Xinhui. Without saying anything, Li Huang went to take out the copper bell, but got nothing. But, Xianyang donor, are you looking for this? The monk Xinhui held a copper bell in his hand and looked at Li Huang with a smile. Li Huang's heart tightened. His biggest support was gone? How could he still fight so hard? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Taking stock of the top 10 golden fingers, the protagonist of Wanjie went crazy. Author, Chirp. Chapter 363. Tisk, is this the beginning of a fight? So, what is the situation now? Is it Li Huang's hallucination? Or is this Gen temple really like this? Nonsense, even the bell was robbed, how could it be an illusion? It can't be an illusion. This Gen temple is definitely not a good bird. At this time, countless people were discussing. And in the picture, Li Huang looked at Xinhui in front of him in confusion, his heart was wary, and his face was a little ugly. When was his bell robbed? That bell, it was used by Danyangzi to summon Master Yu. Now it has become his greatest guarantee and can be regarded as the most important source of strength. But now, this thing has been robbed by someone. It can be said that it has destroyed 100% of him. 80 combat power. Just when Li Huang was thinking, Abbot Xinhui suddenly smiled and put the bell in Li Huang's hand again. Immediately, he said with a smile, Donor Xianyang, this thing is unknown. But be careful when using it. At this moment, Li Huang was stunned, with a face full of confusion. He looked blankly at the bell in his hand, and then at Xinhui, returned it to him. What the hell is this? However, before Li Huang could ask, he saw, Xinhui turned his head, looked at the monks who were running over, and said in a deep voice, what kind of behavior do monks have to be in such a panic? Those monks said helplessly, Abbot, it's not us who are panicking, it's the Suanman disciple who suddenly took action and injured senior brother Jianwei. Abbot. Xinhui was startled, then turned his head, frowned and looked at Li Huang, and asked, Donor Xianyang, is this the case? Why do you attack the disciples of this academy? But he didn't take good care of it. Li Huang frowned and looked at everything that happened in front of him. To be honest, he really couldn't figure it out. Then he simply showed his cards and said, Abbot Xinhui, you have a grudge against Danyangzi, and I will kill you again. If you don't say thank you for killing Danyangzi, then you won't kill them all, right? Don't worry, I will keep everything I see in the temple a secret and won't tell anyone. However, Xinhui became even more confused. He hesitated for a moment and then asked, what did the donor see? Why can't I understand? Li Huang looked at Abbot Xinhui, and then at the similarly confused disciples. For a moment, he couldn't help but doubt. Could it be that he really had hallucinations? No, that's absolutely true, absolutely yes. What he saw with his own eyes was definitely not false. His hallucination was a realistic hallucination, not that kind of hallucination. After thinking about it, Li Huang said everything he saw. However, these words, as soon as it came out, Xinhui became angry and shouted, absurd. What nonsense! After saying this, he quickly clasped his hands together, facing the direction of the main hall, and recited the Buddha's name, Amitabha, it's a sin, it's a sin. If a disciple breaks the precept of anger, he will definitely copy the scriptures 100 times afterwards. After a long time, Xinhui raised her head again and looked at Li Huang. After looking at it carefully for a moment, she nodded and said, I know why. Donor Xianyang, come with me. Li Huang thought for a while, looked at the disciples who were eyeing him, tightened the bell in his hand, and finally followed Xinhui. Then, Xinhui took Li Huang to the previous location and walked around again. Obviously, the stone statue is still a stone statue, and there is no meat mountain at all. The unicorn is still a unicorn, and the stone lion is still a stone lion. Even if you grab a long sword and slash it at the stone lion, the place where the stone lion breaks is still a stone. How come? Li Huang was a little unbelievable. He even stepped forward to touch the broken spot, but found that the touch was very real. The thing was made of stone. When he got to the hall, he took a look. Well, the stone statue of Buddha that chased him earlier was still there. That's called a solemn treasure. No, it's impossible. What I saw just now was so clear. How could it be fake? Li Huang frowned, a little unbelievable. Abbot Xinhui sighed and said quietly, but, donor, you are very ill. I'm not sick. Li Huang blurted out subconsciously, but then his expression became extremely bad again. Could it be that he was really sick? Everything just happened was an illusion? Abbot Xinhui said quietly, donor, what disease do you have? Compared with you know much better than us outsiders. As soon as these words came out, Li Huang felt as if he had been hit hard, and his heart sank. Was he really sick? Everything before was his hallucination? He had obviously eaten so much black tai sui before? Could it be that the statute of limitations has expired? Are you getting sick again? For a moment, Li Huang became suspicious and his face looked very ugly. At this time, the monks around him also came forward, whispering and pointing. After doing it for a long time, it turned out to be a lunatic. I actually think that if nothing happens, we should ask him to leave, so as not to lose his mind and hurt our people again. This lunatic has absolutely no inhibitions when he goes crazy. At this time, everyone was discussing, looking at Li Huang, and whispering. Although the voice was small, the voice still fell in Li Huang's ears. Silence. Abbot Xinhui's voice suddenly sounded, and the monks fell silent for a moment. Immediately, Abbot Xinhui lit 4 incense sticks, handed them to Li Huang, and said, I and other Buddhist disciples have to endure some troubles and some sufferings, but it doesn't matter. It would be bad if it disturbs the Buddha. Let's put a stick of incense on the Buddha. Incense. Li Huang looked at the 4 incense sticks in Abbot Xinhui's hand, and then looked at the huge stone Buddha. 4 incense sticks? Stone Buddha? How can there be 4 incense sticks in the incense stick? Isn't there 3 incense sticks in the incense stick? Why 4 sticks? Or is this world originally the top 4? It's different from the world before I traveled through it? Donor, what are you waiting for? You were at fault in this matter. Abbot Xinhui pressed the 4 incense sticks in his hand forward again. But Li Huang was still hesitant. In his mind, he couldn't help but think of the squirming monster. Not to mention the issue of 4 incense sticks and 3 incense sticks, he went there by himself. If you burn incense, don't you give it to monsters? Donor, what are you still hesitating about? Abbot Xinhui spoke again. Li Huang turned around and saw that Abbot Xinhui had some displeasure on his face at this time. Li Huang took a deep breath, looked at the blazing sun, and then looked at the stone Buddha. Finally took the incense and walked towards the stone Buddha step by step. Finally, he bowed to the stone Buddha 3 times before inserting the incense into the incense burner. During the whole process, nothing happened. Question. Seeing that Li Huang's incense was also served, the monks also went back and continued carving. Seeing this extremely normal scene, Li Huang only felt an indescribable absurdity. But he just couldn't say it. I just can't find what's so ridiculous. On the way, Abbot Xinhui looked at Li Huang, sighed, and said, Almsgiver Xianyang, since you are so ill, then stop running around and wait for Buddha with peace of mind. Let's have a fast. Li Huang was silent. Although your illness is troublesome, Danyangzi is obviously more dangerous than your illness. Don't be impatient when things happen, just take it step by step. Abbot Xinhui turned the Buddha around and heard the sound and spoke. Li Huang pondered, and then asked Abbot, is there any solution to my hysteria in Zhen Temple? This. Abbot Xinhui thought for a while and then said, I can let my disciples try it. Whether it will succeed or not, I can't say for sure. After all, this academy does not have the inheritance of Huang Qi's technique. It's okay, I'll just ask. Li Huang looked indifferent. By the way, Abbot, how did you do it before? Why did my things suddenly end up with you? Haha, it's just a trivial trick. Abbot, don't be humble. If all your methods are trivial tricks, then who am I? A bug. Alas, Xianyang donor, you can't say that. You see, although Danyangzi is not as strong as me, he can be considered a mid-range player outside, but weren't you eliminated in the end? Oh? Danyangzi is in the middle? How powerful is the upstream one? By the way, in this arena, what's the difference between masters like you? Yes, there are, but they are nothing more than random fabrications by some boring people. Monks don't care about things like heaven and earth, and so on. At this time, the two people were walking, asking and answering questions. Li Huang also had a deeper understanding of the world. After bidding farewell to Abbot Xinhui, Li Huang left and headed to his residence. Along the way, Li Huang seemed they were all worried. However, when he entered his room and closed the door, the next second, boom, he punched hard and hit the wall directly. His face suddenly became ferocious. Damn, these monks are so clever, he gritted his teeth and his eyes were full of scarlet. Yes, everything before was just Li Huang's way of confusing those monks. He has been dealing with hallucinations for a long time, how could he not be able to distinguish hallucinations from reality? He is too sensitive in this regard. That big Buddha felt wrong to him, like a member of an illusion, with an indescribable smell. Although he didn't know how those monks deceived his senses, there was no doubt that, those stone sculptures it's fake. That Buddha is fake too. These were all created using blindness. Everything he saw before was not an illusion at all. It's fake, it's all fake. These monks can't deceive me. At this time, countless people in the world saw this scene, and their eyelids jumped. Good guy, what the hell, even I was deceived. I really thought Li Huang was sick. Haha, Pandeo felt from beginning to end that everything was true. After all, Li Huang's hallucination was not some weird and twisted mountain of flesh, but the real world, a mental hospital. So, Pandeo is true at first glance. Good guy, flesh and blood Buddha? What the hell is this? It's actually true? Damn it, you were so stunned for a moment. Do you think it's possible that this is all the brainchild of the mentally ill Li Huang? In fact, everything is Li Huang's illusion. Tisk, stop talking, the more you talk, the more abstract it becomes. At this time, countless people were discussing, sighing, and were very surprised. At the same time, in the Dao Gold list, the picture changed. The next day, Li Huang opened the door and looked at everything that looked normal outside. He narrowed his eyes, and having already made up his mind, he snorted coldly, haha, it's all drilled out. They can't lie to me. They did this just to stabilize me and to let me participate in the Purdue Fest. Li Huang looked at everything around him with a sneer. But then, he frowned again. But why? How could he, an ordinary person like himself, need these guys to deliberately deceive him? Why don't he just talk to him? Li Huang couldn't figure it out and had no answer. However, it didn't matter if he couldn't figure it out. He just wanted to leave this ghost place as soon as possible. He quickly made up his mind to follow the monks of Zhen Temple to eat while they were eating. When the surrounding monks saw Li Huang, they all whispered and discussed in low voices. Li Huang squinted at all this and snorted coldly. He knew that these were all fake. These monks were all pretending. They are in the same group as Xinhui, and there is not a single good person in Zhen Temple. They all want to harm me, Li Huang confirmed categorically. However, Li Hongwang did not act rashly. He should eat and drink, and Zhaonyo is as good as Chang. Oh, Taoist priest, you are here too. Why were you running in a panic before? At this moment, a big hand patted Li Huang on the shoulder. Li Huang turned his head and saw the old monk. If the old monk hadn't pulled him to see some Buddha statue, this situation would not have happened. "Shall we eat together?" The old monk brought the meal over. Whatever, Li Huang didn't care. The monk was a familiar person. At this time, he curiously asked, "By the way, Taoist priest, where are the people before you? Don't let them stay in the inn, let them come and eat together. The food here is free." Li Huang was too lazy to answer. As usual, he finished eating and walked to the dining room. "Oh, monk, don't go, let's chat for a while. The monks here are bored to death." The old monk quickly followed. Li Huang was impatient. "Don't follow me, go back to sleep." "What are you sleeping on? What time is this?" The old monk said again. "Let me tell you something." However, before the old monk could finish speaking, "Go quickly, the faster the better. This temple is dangerous," Li Huang whispered in the ear of the old monk. The next second, Li Huang ran towards the main hall. After arriving at the main hall where there was a lot of people, Li Huang suddenly stood still, looked around, and became a little surprised and uncertain. He did not pursue him. Soldiers. Not only are there no chasing soldiers, but the monks who interpret the signs in the main hall are also normal and cannot play normally. What is normal is a little abnormal. Could it be? Was it really just my own hallucination before? Those disgusting things were my own imagination coming out? Li Huang shook his head, gave up this ridiculous idea, and strode out of Gen Temple. After returning to the inn, he directly asked everyone to pack their things and leave this place quickly. Directly. Leave the customs. Taking stock of the top 10 golden fingers, the protagonist of Wanjie went crazy. Author, Chirp. Chapter 364. Crazy, completely crazy. This Li Huang has delusions of being persecuted, right? Is it okay to just go crazy? I feel that Li Huang does not necessarily have delusions of being persecuted. Perhaps his feeling is not wrong. I just feel that this Gen Temple is not a good thing. Anyway, I feel that Li Huang is right to be cautious. Just be careful and sail the ship for 10,000 years. Indeed, it is a common principle to sail a 10,000-year-old ship carefully, and to be careful enough to keep Li Huang alive and keep these people alive, not only in this world, but also in all the worlds. At this time, countless people were discussing. And as they were discussing, in the picture, Li Huang and the others were already on the road in a donkey cart. They didn't hold back, and they didn't think about what was weird about Gen Temple. Just leave. Although they still don't know what happened, and they don't know why Li Huang wants to leave the seclusion. But they can only obey. Li Huang opened the map and looked at the next route. In this world, nationet is roughly divided into Siqi, Hoshu, Qingqiu, and Liang. These 4 countries are right next to each other. And these junior brothers come from various countries, including those from Siqi, some from Hoshu, some from Qingqiu, and some from Liang. Then Bai Lingmiao belongs to Lianguo. Therefore, if you want to go back, you have to at least go to the west to learn scriptures, which is 1,000 miles away. But there was no way, Li Huang still had to leave. However, Li Huang was very anxious, as if he was afraid of catching up. He also felt that driving the donkey cart was too slow, and after eating, he had to go into the woods. There was no other way, everyone could only follow Li Huang. It was night, and in a dense bush, everyone had begun to rest. Li Huang had already wrapped himself in a quilt and started keeping vigil. He didn't dare to light a fire, for fear of attracting the attention of the monks behind him. Although he didn't see those monks chasing him along the way, he was extremely sure that those monks would definitely chase him. Therefore, he is very careful and cautious. Before those monks arrived, and in the hazy night, he began to count his combat power. The bell that summons Mr. Yu is his greatest support. However, he thought of Xinhui's method of taking his things at will, and he felt a little uneasy. Sure enough, you still have to become stronger. In this bizarre world, you can only gain a foothold if you become stronger. Although he doesn't know how to become stronger, but think about it, people like Danyangza can have magical means, why can't he? No matter how weird or strange the world's practice methods are, he will get it. I want to protect myself and the people I want to protect. If you can't ask for it, steal it. If you can't steal it, grab it. If you can't get it, you'll get it. At this moment, Li Huang's expression gradually became ferocious. However, when countless people in the world saw this scene, their pupils trembled, and they looked at the scene with incredible expressions on their faces. Damn it, what the hell did I see? Li Huang, why did it become like this? Hiss, why do these words sound so familiar? Damn it, this is what Danyangza said before. What the hell, Li Huang was taken away by Danyangza. Hiss, I suddenly felt a chill. Although Li Huang was not a holy mother before, he still had a kind heart and a conscience, but now, Li Huang has become just like Danyangza. Haha, that's called sect inheritance. What a magical inheritance. Haha, Li Huang really learned something from Qingfen Temple. Tisk, I feel that this is actually a transformation of state of mind. The reason why we feel weird is because Danyangza said this and then suspected that Danyangza was not dead, which is why we have this weird and scary feeling. To put it bluntly, it's just a normal change of mood. Indeed, what you said is true. Li Huang has experienced a lot before, but no matter what it is, he can let Mr. Yu solve it, until he discovers in Gen Temple that his bell may be snatched away at any time. He also had the idea of becoming stronger. Now, if he encounters something and has no choice but to escape, then that state of mind must have become more intense. Indeed, this is a normal change of mood. Haha, if you make a blind guess, someone will definitely be slapped in the face in the future. At this time, countless people were discussing, looking at the scene that happened in the Dao Golden List, it was amazing. At this time, in the picture, accompanied by Li Huang's ferocious appearance, an ethereal chanting sound suddenly came from the quiet night sky. Nao, Hehaluadana, Dual Ui. Li Huang's pupils shrank, he stood up suddenly, and quickly looked around, but it was pitch black all around, and he couldn't see anything clearly. The sound of chanting came again, from far to near. Namo, Ajuyu, Polygity, Shuoboluyi. Li Huang's face changed drastically, and he shouted loudly, let's go, let's go. Get up, let's go. Run, run. Stop Sifk, you fool, do what I taught you before. For a moment, everyone woke up as Li Huang shouted for peace. The expressions of the others changed drastically and they ran away without saying a word. Bai Lingmiao also planned to follow Li Huang, but was carried away directly by the fool. Li Huang, of course, ran in the opposite direction, jumped out of the bushes and rushed towards the road. He knew very well that these monks were targeting him, so he had no choice but to run. In the darkness, he kept running, but the sound of chanting that he didn't know where to come from was pursued by poor ghosts. Moreover, the tip of Li Huang's nose could even smell the faint scent of sandalwood. Suddenly, Li Huang stopped. He looked at the dark road ahead, watching the many red dots trembling slightly, the chanting became louder and louder. Finally, in the darkness, the thing slowly appeared. That's a Buddha. The huge Buddha head, and that terrifying, hill-like body. The small dots Li Huang saw before were not torches in the distance at all, but bunches of incense stuck on the Buddha. Those incense trembled with the swing of the Buddha. The most important thing is that there is not just one thing, but 7. The 7 Buddhas were lined up side by side, swaying towards Li Huang. Finally, when the Buddha was completely exposed to the moonlight, Li Huang looked at the leading Buddha and narrowed his eyes. He knew that Buddha. That's solid chaos. Amitabha, donor, Your heart is not at peace. Jian Chaos voice sounded faintly, spreading throughout the entire mountain forest. Li Huang looked at the monster, which was at least 4 meters tall, looked at the so-called flesh Buddha, and sneered. Finally stop pretending. Showdown. You monster-worshipping trash. Jian Chaos said quietly. Donor, the poor monk doesn't know what you are talking about, so you should follow the poor monk back to the temple quickly. Danyang's cause and effect is on you. If you leave with him, you will be in big trouble. Even everyone in this world will be in big trouble. Amitabha. Jian Chuan recited a Buddha's name. This Buddha's name is like a switch. Tear. The next second, the flesh and blood on his back was torn open. Immediately, fleshless palms swayed like this and grew out from behind him. The flesh and blood were blurred and dripping with blood. Not only the Jian Chaos, but also the other 6. The Buddha also has fleshless arms growing out of his back. It's so terrifying. The 7 flesh and blood 1,000-armed Buddhas, the sense of oppression is overwhelming in an instant. Ring ring ring. Li Huang shook the bell in an instant without saying a word. At this moment, the surrounding environment began to distort, and the branches twisted, forming Master Yu. However, the ringing did not affect those Buddhas at all. Li Huang didn't care, grabbed a handful of mud and stuffed it into his mouth. Look at Acanthus. Li Huang shouted low. Master Yu flew towards the 7 Buddhas with his afterimage in an instant. The 7 Buddhas seemed to be aware of it, and they took pictures with one palm. But it was useless. Master Yu ignored them and was unable to attack. Came out directly from behind the palm, and rushed towards the face of the big Buddha. When Mr. Yu got into the head of a Buddha, the tall body began to shake, and after a while, he fell heavily to the ground, and his facial features began to melting, even the body began to distort according to the hallucinations around it. Bang bang bang. The remaining 6 Buddhas stood back to back, forming a circle. Then, they sat cross-legged on the ground one by one, clasped their hands together, and began to chant Buddhist sutras. Tathagata Adora, 3 Mo. 3 Bodhisattvas. Along with the sound of chanting, Li Huang quickly realized that something was wrong. The lines that made up Mr. Yu's body began to twist. Li Huang's expression changed, and the bell in his hand shook harder. At the same time, he shouted in a low voice KO. Hearing that Li Huang was willing to pay after more yang shao, Mr. Yu struggled to maintain his body and rushed towards one of the Buddhas. Boom! After a while, another Buddha fell. However, this is the limit. With the loud chanting sound, Mr. Yu fell from the air to the ground. Well, Li Huang looked at Mr. Yu who fell on the ground and sighed softly. Master Yu is useless. He also stopped shaking the bell. When everything around him returned to normal, Li Huang discovered that Mr. Yu had not disappeared. The original lines on its body began to fade and turned into pink flesh. He was originally invisible, but he was given flesh and blood by the chanting of these Buddhas. Master Yu, who had a physical body, was no match for these Buddhas. The palm with the swastika imprinted on it was slapped, and it turned Mr. Yu into a pulp. Finally, the 5 Buddhas swayed and surrounded Li Huang. The firm and chaotic voice sounded faintly Amitabha. Donor, please come back with me. Li Huang held the hilt of the sword and said resolutely, I won't go. Just when Li Huang thought he was going to take action. Watch the violence. The strong and chaotic voice sounded again Amitabha. Donor, you better go. We are doing this for your own good. He. For my own good. Li Huang sneered. If it's really for my own good, then let me leave. Aren't monks compassionate? So what if you let me go? It is precisely because of our compassion that we cannot let the donor leave, Jian Chaos said calmly. Snapped. However, the next second, a stone flew over and hit the Buddha's head directly, making a crisp sound. As soon as the stone flew in the direction, Li Huang and others were standing in the distance holding the luminous stone, throwing rocks this way with all his strength. Bai Ling Miao shouted at the same time, "Senior brother Li, run." The lethality of that stone is almost non-existent. This move is nothing more than attracting hatred. Li Huang's pupils shrank, and he felt anxious. Damn it, who asked you to come back? However, before he could take action, that Jian chaos is one step faster. Amitabha, the sea of suffering is boundless, but you can finally turn around. Jian chaos announced the Buddha's name, and the next second, his body jumped up high, like a meteorite, and hit Bai Ling Miao and the others hard. Seeing Jian chaos, he planned to step forward. Li Huang's expression was ferocious, and he shouted loudly, "Stop!" Unexpectedly, the moment Li Huang finished speaking, both the Buddha and Jian chaos around him took a step back. "Donor Xianyang, we have no plans to do anything, calm down." "Please calm." The Jian Chuan voice was a little panicked, as if he was afraid that Li Huang would do something drastic. However, at this scene, Li Huang was stunned, and Bai Ling Miao and the others were also stunned. Even all the heavens and worlds were stunned. At this time, countless people looked at everything that happened in the Dao Jinbang with strange faces, and they were a little confused. What does it mean? Are these guys very afraid of Li Huang? Worried about Li Huang going crazy? They seemed to be afraid of irritating Li Huang. What was going on? Is it possible that Li Huang still has hidden power in his body that has not yet been developed? Can it only be used when one is excited? Good guy, why do I feel like each of these enemies knows Li Huang better than the last one? That's interesting. Is this Li Huang's conceptual ability? I feel a bit like it, that's it, but I don't know what Li Huang's ability is. Damn it, you don't understand yourself, but your enemy knows you better than you do. What the hell? In fact, it's normal. Li Huang was just an ordinary person before, and Danyangzi was also a monk in the wild, so he couldn't tell that Li Huang was special. Now, I finally met someone who knows the situation, but I don't know what Li Huang's ability is. At this time, countless people were discussing and marveling. At the same time, in the picture, along with Li Huang's confusion, it was seen that the strong chaos crossed the branches to make a simple cage, trapping everyone inside, and then said, "Monks do not kill, poor people, the monk just wants them to calm down." Then, Jian Chuan strode towards Li Huang and said at the same time, "Donor Xianyang, since you are not willing to wait back with me, why not argue with the poor monk?" Dialectical? Li Huang squinted at the sky and chuckled, "Are you trying to persuade me to go back by talking?" "Of course." Jian Chuan nodded. "Donor Xianyang is a sensible person. I believe that I can convince Donor Xianyang." "Oh," Li Huang narrowed his eyes. Everything from him to Gen Temple to now was instantly resounded in his mind. What are these guys afraid of? They are obviously much stronger than themselves, but they want to lie to themselves? Is it possible that, what is special about him? Is it his hidden ability? Or, is there something about him that makes them afraid? Li Huang was thinking crazily in his mind. Suddenly, his pupils shrank. Danyangzi. It's Danyangzi. These people, the guy didn't dare to use force against him because he was afraid that he would be fatally injured and Danyangzi would appear. Danyangzi was actually protecting himself. Damn it! At this moment, Li Huang understood everything. Although it was Danyangzi who killed him, he was still alive. From Danyangzi's perspective, Li Huang actually didn't do anything bad to him at all, but actually helped him become an immortal. Haha. I understand. At this moment, Li Huang completely understood. Taking stock of the top 10 golden fingers, the protagonist of Wanjie went crazy. Author, Chirp. Chapter 365. At this moment, in the world of Daogui. There is, Danyang Zi in my body. Li Huang looked at everything that happened in the Dao Golden List in a daze, a little confused, and a little dazed. He had seen everything that happened in the picture before, and he was still a little doubtful, wondering if there was some kind of powerful force in his body. After all, when it came to his inventory, but the conceptual ability. He also broke it down there, what kind of conceptual ability did he have? But after guessing for a long time, he found that there was a Danyangzi in his body. What the hell? Li Huang was speechless. Not only was he speechless, but all the fellow apprentices around him also looked at Li Huang strangely. Is there a master among fellow apprentices, Li? What the hell? Everyone was in a trance, a little confused. What the hell? It's so weird, so scary. At this time, in the blue and white world. This Danyangzi, Master Go took a breath, and for a moment, he didn't know what to say. Has Danyangzi really become a part of Li Huang? Isn't it true that Li Huang has some powerful power in his body? Mo Kyung also frowned and raised his eyebrows. Well, I suspect that those monks are not only afraid of the Danyangzi in Li Huang's body, but also something else, Go Ye suddenly said. Mo Kyung nodded. He felt that Master Go's guess was not unreasonable. The only problem is that I don't know what kind of abilities Li Huang has. However, the greater possibility is that Li Huang's body is Danyangzi. Judging from previous performances, Li Huang is likely to be assimilated by Danyangzi, and Danyangzi is affecting Li Huang's mind and body step by step, Mo Kyung said. What the kind of world is this? Weird world? That kind of Thulhu? Master Go was shocked and confused. Mo Kyung was also speechless. To be honest, he felt weird too. At the same time, in a great world composed of 1,000 worlds. Danyangzi, Li Huang, conceptual ability, Li Changshao thought, and gradually connected all these things in his mind. Senior brother, tell me, what is going on with Li Huang? At this time, Ling Yi spoke subconsciously, frowned, and looked at the great Dao Golden List. It should be, Li Huang killed Danyangzi, but not completely. So, he let Danyangzi live in Li Huang's body. Those people did not dare to provoke Li Huang for fear of Li Huang's anger. Thinking about it, it was not Danyangzi who was afraid of him. It's Li Huang's own ability, which should be the so-called conceptual ability, and Danyangzi's words. Li Changshao was talking, and for a moment, he didn't know what to say. Senior brother, what's wrong? What happened to Danyangzi? Ling Yi asked subconsciously. Nothing. Li Changshao took a long breath and shook his head gently. He looked at the Dao Gold List with deep eyes. To be honest, although he had a guess, he couldn't tell the reason for a while. To put it bluntly, it is still not clear, there is too little information. You have to keep reading. At this time, countless people are discussing in the world. As for whether the Danyangzi in Li Huang's body is not known. Anyway, the current Li Huang is extremely sure that there is a Danyangzi in his body. These guys are so scared. So. Li Huang suddenly smiled, looked at Jianchuan, and said, are you afraid of Danyangzi? Since he has become a Buddha, you monks are still afraid of him. Jianchuan's expression froze, and he said quietly, Xianyang donor, the poor monk doesn't know what you are talking about. Monks don't lie. The poor monk can swear to the Buddha that he will never cause any harm to you except for Putadazai to deal with Danyangzi. Tisk, a good monk doesn't tell lies. Li Huang looked at Jian Chaos with a mocking look. What's the use of this guy's swearing? You swore not to do anything to yourself. That Xinhui didn't swear. Those other monks didn't swear. Li Huang knows this kind of words that take advantage of loopholes. If you really go back with these people, and let these guys deal with Danyangzi, he will probably become a piece of meat on the chopping board. So, you must not go back with them. I suddenly realized that it was good to take Danyangza with me. After all, he is my master. As an apprentice, I feel really bad about just getting rid of him like this, Li Huang said with a smile. Amitabha. Jian Chaos announced the Buddha's name, and then said again, Donor Xianyang, this is probably impossible. Danyangza is not only related to you, but also to the entire world. Oh? How about you tell my master face to face? Li Huang suddenly looked at Jian Chaos mockingly. What? Jian Chaos was confused. Clang, however, Li Huang directly pulled out the long sword. Jian Chaos smiled and said calmly, Donor Xianyang wants to use this thing to break the poor monk's Buddha body. All I can say is, Donor, you are possessed. Obviously, Jian Chuan was very confident in his Buddha body. However, Li Huang did sneer. Didn't you hear what I just said? I'll let you talk to Danyangza face to face. Poof. The next second, Li Huang directly wiped the long sword to his neck, and blood sprayed out instantly, directly dyeing Li Huang's robe red. That's called hesitation, and that's called decisive. He seemed to believe his own inference. Everything. So, he wiped his neck without hesitation. When his consciousness began to blur, Li Huang suddenly whispered, Did you hear it? It seems like thunder. At this time, countless people in the world were watching the scene in astonishment. They were really shocked when they saw Li Huang wiping his neck without hesitation. Damn it, this is so cruel. Are you showing no mercy to yourself? How could he be so sure that he had Danyangza in his body? How could he be so sure that Danyangza would come to the rescue? How could he be so sure that Danyangza was protecting him? Damn it, just wipe it on your neck? Don't leave yourself a way out? So cruel. Damn it, this crazy and cruel feeling, I'm so humming numb. It's the first time I've seen such a ruthless guy. Worry, didn't Li Huang hesitate? Damn it, if it were me, I would never dare to do it. What the hell, what if it's not? What if I guess wrong? Damn, he's so cruel. This is the first time I've seen such a cruel person. Only when he's cruel to himself is he really cruel. Li Huang, I would like to call him the most ruthless person in the world. Damn it, is this a calling? It's so hardcore. Hardcore summons. Crazy. This Li Huang is completely crazy. Li Huang, I'm not sick. At this time, countless people were discussing and looking at everything that happened in the picture with emotion. They were really shocked by Li Huang's actions. This is the only existence that has shocked countless great monks in all the worlds. The most important thing is that this Li Huang, so far, has been immortal. If there were no accidents, how could he have been able to wipe his neck like this? But of course, depending on everything that happened in the Dao Golden List, it seems that Li Huang gambled right. Well, yes, it thundered. The previous half-moon had been shrouded in thick dark clouds. Among the dark clouds, there was a rumble of thunder. No, that sound sounded like thunder at first, but in fact, it was not thunder at all. Just then, a terrifying figure emerged from the thick dark clouds. It was a figure with 3 heads, a young one, a middle-aged one, and an old one. The body was covered in black feathers are all over his body, and the 3 faces of different ages are particularly terrifying. Even this time, Danyangza is even more ugly than before. His body is black and shiny, there are also a pair of vertical pupils, as well as the filthy and unclean internal organs, and the things wrapped with evil tentacles. And these, messy, some things that I don't know how to describe, are all suspended in the air by a thread, and the fluttering white ribbon surrounded the hair. Danyangza. Half-immortal Danyangza. At this moment, the scalps of Jian Chuan and those guys were numb. As for Li Huang, his eyes were bloodshot, veins were popping up on his forehead, and his head was even starting to swell. Like a birthday girl. You can't watch it anymore. If placed in other worlds, Danyangza would be terrifying at best, but it's still watchable. However, in their world, as long as your strength is not up to the mark, just look, just by noticing his existence, just by hearing his existence, you may be affected. Either you will be assimilated into a part of him, or you will just burp. Li Huang knew that he could not watch any more, so he moved his eyes away, stretched out his trembling hands, took out a few blood-moistening pills from his waist and swallowed them. His blood flow became visibly slower, and the amount of bleeding also decreased. Li Huang took some more Gubenpiun's elixir. At this time, just listen. Tear. The sound of tearing flesh and blood suddenly sounded, and Li Huang couldn't help but turn his head to look. But what he saw was that the extremely weird Danyangzi had already started to move. At this time, he was like a big lizard, lying on the head of the huge Buddha. The three big mouths opened and tore off the ears of the giant Buddha. Danyangza was really strong. He suppressed these guys and beat them throughout the whole process. He either bit or scratched them. In the end, he even opened the wound and his head went to when it stretched out, it swallowed up the huge Buddha body. When Danyangza, who was covered in blood, turned to look at Jian Chao. Jian Chao's face changed drastically, and he took out a Buddhist scripture made of black moles. Om Mani Padme Hum, the 6-character mantra was recited in the mouth, and the bloody scripture spread all over the body. When the bloody scripture spread from the Buddha to Danyangza, Danyangza began to tremble involuntarily. Danyangza flickered a few times, and finally disappeared completely. In response to this, Jian Chaos finally breathed a sigh of relief, and a smile finally appeared on his face. Looking at the human skin scripture in his hand, the scriptures had begun to reappear. Seeing that there were many words, Jian Chaos was satisfied. Smiling, just as he was about to close it. Boom! The scripture exploded violently, and the scriptures were scattered everywhere. The terrifying Danyangzi actually got out of the scripture like this. You. Jian Chuan was confused and subconsciously opened his mouth. However, taking advantage of the opportunity to speak, Danyangzi directly penetrated into Jian Chuan's throat without saying a word. For it. Jian Chaos' eyes widened, filled with fear, and his expression began to lose control. His mouth opened to the extreme, and he couldn't close it even if he wanted to. Tear, in his body, there were bursts of tearing sounds of flesh and blood, as well as the sound of chewing. Waves of severe pain came from. No. No, no. Jian Chaos shouted in horror, but it was useless, everything was useless. Tear, his chest was cut open from the inside out by Danyangza, and 3 heads came out from the inside. The 3 big mouths pulled at the same time, and Jian Chaos died completely. In just a moment, 2 of them died. The remaining 3 are better solved. Not long after, the scene was replaced by the sound of chewing, the snap of bones breaking, and the gurgling sound of flesh and blood being swallowed. It was simply creepy and made people shudder. A quarter of an hour passed. 7 statues the Buddha disappeared completely, leaving only the steaming dirty blood on the ground. Finally, when all was done, Danyangza turned his head, and the 3 faces of different periods looked at Li Huang at the same time, showing a meaningful and terrifying smile. Baby. Before he could say anything, Danyangza disappeared like a cloud. When the moonlight shone on Li Huang's face again, everything finally settled. Li Huang touched his neck and stood up with difficulty. Thinking back to everything that had happened before, he couldn't help but grin. It was only then that he turned his head and looked at the brothers who were trapped by the branches. At this time, everyone was almost frightened. Everyone was horrified and huddled up in a ball, their faces full of fear. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, you all. Danyangza is really dead. He won't treat you like medicine anymore, Li Huang opened his mouth to comfort. However, as soon as these words came out, the fear on everyone's faces not only did not weaken by half, but became even more frightening. The Taoist boy was even scared to tears. What's wrong? What happened to you guys? Li Huang tilted his head and looked at everyone with some confusion. Everyone was even more frightened by the scene of Li Huang. Li Huang frowned and subconsciously looked at Bai Lingmiao. Who is the closest to him among them? Only Bai Lingmiao was left. But the moment Li Huang looked at him, Bai Lingmiao's face turned pale. However, Bai Lingmiao still took a deep breath and asked in an unnatural tone, "Senior brother Li. What Daniangzi? Didn't we see it?" For it. Li Huang swallowed his saliva, his face changed, and he frowned. "Can't you see Daniangzi who killed those Buddhas? Is it possible that in your eyes, he is transparent? Or is Daniangzi performing some magic?" For a moment, Li Huang was filled with speculations. Seeing Li Huang thinking, the little dog huddled behind the silly big man was trembling all over. He didn't dare to look at Li Huang, but closed his eyes and cried loudly, "Senior brother Li. How can there be such a thing as Daniangzi? You are the only one from beginning to end." Boom. At this moment, Go Wa's words were like a thunderbolt from the blue, not only stunned Li Huang. At the same time, they also stunned countless people in the world. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Taking stock of the top 10 golden fingers, the protagonist of Wanjie went crazy. Author, Chirp. Chapter 366. Damn it! I'm in a hurry. What the hell is this? Is there only Li Huang from beginning to end? No Daniangzi? I'm so numb. What the hell is this? Li Huang is really, what the hell? In other words, Daniangzi is actually Li Huang's hallucination. My scalp feels numb anyway. It's over, completely crazy. Now I can't tell whether I am crazy or Li Huang is crazy. Li Huang, did you eat those monks? Hiss. It's so scary. I just feel like the hairs on my hair are standing on end. Damn it, as expected, it was Li Huang who ate Daniangzi. So, Li Huang became the human body of Daniangzi. God is so human. Co-authored, it was Li Huang who became an immortal himself. Damn it! I sat up in shock when I was dying of illness. Daniang turned out to be me. My dear, it's so scary, it makes my scalp numb just looking at it. At this time, countless people in the world were excited. Following Go Wa's words, everyone looked at everything that happened in the Dao Golden List in shock. They were stupid. Countless people were really stupid. Why? I didn't expect that the scene would happen. Was it Li Huang the whole time? Nothing else appeared? Damn it, who wouldn't be confused by this? At this time, in the world of Daogui, Li, senior brother Li, Go Wa looked at the Avenue Gold List in shock, and then looked at Li Huang with a stutter, his face full of confusion. Forget about him, there is no one here who is not timid. It was so scary, so scary. Li Huang actually ate those, 940 vomit. At this moment, their stomachs were churning, and their faces were a little ugly. Although everything they saw was also seen by Li Huang, in their opinion, it was indeed Daniangzi who had eaten those Buddhas. However, they in the picture said that Li Huang ate it. There is no doubt that they believed in themselves in the picture. So, their senior brother Li really ate the monk? In this regard, Li Huang's expression he also changed. After a long time, his face darkened, he snorted coldly, said nothing, and just stared at the golden list of Dao with his eyes. Haha, it's all fake. I want to see what else comes out. At this moment, in the picture, With Danyangzi killing those Buddhas, well, at least, that's what Li Huoang thought. After Danyangzi killed those guys, they continued on the road. However, they were very depressed and silent along the way. Li Huoang thought that Danyangzi killed those guys. But others saw that they were eating it. One of the two must be fake. Then, Li Huoang felt his unusually full stomach again, and he began to doubt himself. Is it possible that Danyangzi is really dead and everything is just his imagination? Li Huoang thought about it, but soon he overturned this possibility. Because even if he gets sick, he can't get rid of those Buddhas. In the final analysis, it is still Danyangzi. As for belly support, perhaps it was Danyangzi who possessed him, and that was why all that happened. That's right. So, everything makes sense. Danyangzi is possessing himself, rather than protecting himself. It is better to say that he is protecting himself. How could Danyangzi, that piece of shit, help others with kindness? Therefore, Danyangzi has only one purpose for doing this, which is, to seize the body. Li Huoang's eyes narrowed, and he suddenly looked at Bai Lingmiao and asked, "Do you think my temper has gotten worse since I came out of Qingfeng Temple?" "No." "Why does senior brother Li ask that?" Bai Lingmiao looked at Li Huoang strangely. Because Danyangzi was definitely not holding anything back. However, Li Huoang smiled and did not answer. However, the suspicion about seizing the body in his mind became stronger and stronger. His heart sank, and he was very worried. Calm down quickly. No matter what, Danyangzi must solve it. But how to solve it is the problem. After experiencing the Gen Temple incident, he no longer dares to believe in other sects, nor does he dare to contact other sections. Even the monks will become so terrifying, what will other sects become? There is no doubt that it will definitely become more terrifying. Li Huoang was thinking, and he didn't know how long it took before the donkey cart stopped by the river. Bai Lingmiao spontaneously, "I went to wash Li Huoang's red robe." Another furry girl fed Li Huoang. This furry girl was named Chun Xiaoman. She was covered with hair. Li Huoang was not surprised. This was actually just a kind of hirsutism. In essence, if you shave off your hair, you will be no different from a normal person. Naturally, Li Huoang will not discriminate against Xiaoman. After almost eating, Li Huoang said softly, "Xiaoman, let Bai Lingmiao come back. If you can't wash it clean, don't wash it." "Good." Xiaoman put Li Huoang down and then went to find Bai Lingmiao. Not long after, Bai Lingmiao came back. At the same time, the blood-colored robe in her hand also turned into the original blue robe again. The group of people started to be busy again, lighting fires and doing the meal was cooked. Not long after, the people from the Lu family class also caught up. The sun went down, and the group rested here. The Lu family class naturally had to follow Li Huoang. There was no other way. Li Huoang, a free thug, should not be used in vain. Li Huoang didn't care about this. After that, Li Huoang was almost healed, so he started to let the silly big guy start waving the wooden stick in his hand. He wanted to train the silly big guy. The silly big guy was really tall and looked like it's like a mountain of meat. There's no need to pity this kind of natural combat power. Although the silly big guy stutters, he's not really stupid. It's okay to let him break some things. Li Huoang doesn't want his entire team to have only with such a fighting power, he needs to add more fighting power. Well, ordinary methods will definitely not work against those weird things, but it is still no problem to deal with bandits. Finally, when the training was almost done, he started to eat. Eat. After finishing, Li Huoang took out the copper bell again. Thinking back to the smashed Master Yu, he couldn't help but frown. Can Master Yu still use it? If he can't, his combat power will be greatly reduced. Well, after all, the possession of Danyangzi is a tactic. In ordinary times, if you can't use it, don't use it. Therefore, he still values Mr. Yu very much. Then, Li Huang started to try it. However, accompanied by the sound of bells, the hallucination was appeared, but Mr. Yu did not come out. Is it possible that this is really useless? Li Huang frowned. However, as soon as this thought came to his mind, he saw that the lines began to mix again to form a new Mr. Yu. Li Huang asked. Mr. Yu didn't have any mood swings. Just like the one who was shot to death before. It's not the same as him. Fortunately, he got some information through communication. Master Yu also has a name, but their names cannot be said by human vocal organs. Secondly, Master Yu is not dead. With this concept, they themselves are not considered living creatures. In fact, not only do they not have the concept of death, there is also no concept of quantity. No concept of quantity. Li Huang's heart moved, he thought for a while, and then shook his head gently. As he shook his head, everything around him became blurred, and then, I saw that Master Yu changed from 1 to 2. It was like his afterimage also turned into Master Yu. Li Huang understood clearly. Then, he began to shake his head more vigorously. Ring ring ring, Li Huang was shaking his head and ringing the bell at the same time. That feeling was so crazy, a crazy good deed. It was so crazy. Countless people in the world looked at this weird scene, and the corners of their mouths twitched crazily. It's really like looking at a mental patient. As Li Huang shook his head, the number of Yu masters also increased. In the end, there were 30 Yu masters. Vomit, Li Huang finally couldn't bear it anymore, bent down, and vomited. Aha! The ringing disappeared, everything around returned to normal, and those Yu masters also quickly disappeared. After a long time, Li Huang came back to his senses, calmed down, and then looked at the copper bell in his hand. If I had known about this before, would I have avoided hurting myself and invited Daniangzi, Li Huang thought. Daniangzi has great hidden dangers. However, Mr. Yu is not much better. It takes a lifetime to treat Mr. Yu. One time, one Mr. Yu will cost him 3 months of life. If there are so many Mr. Yu takes action together. Is it possible that if you ask for it once, you will need 10 years of life? What the heck, this is simply fighting on Krypton. In other immortal cultivation novels, the protagonists use spiritual power to fight. After the spiritual power is exhausted, can he still survive? Recovery. And what about him? Hummed. If he fights, his lifespan will range from a few months to a year. If he fights 10 times, he will be gone in 10 years. How many more fights can he have? In this life, can he use it again? How many times have you visited Master? What a loss! What a loss! Li Huang sighed, and finally returned to the donkey cart with a complicated look on his face. However, just by chance, I met a traveling merchant. The things that the traveling merchant sold were all miscellaneous and messy, and they had everything. I don't know where it came from. However, Lu Zhuangyuan from the Lu family class is very well informed. I know that this businessman is actually working with those bandits and thieves. The thieves are responsible for robbing, and this kind of people are responsible for collecting and selling. Li Huang didn't care about this. At this time, the traveling businessman came forward and asked with a smile, Master Tao, do you want cinnabar? I have other things too. No need to kill. Are there any murderous things? Li Huang asked directly. Aha! As soon as these words came out, everyone present looked over. The businessman looked happy and immediately said with a smile, yes, yes. We don't have many other things, but this murderous guy has everything in place. As he said that, the traveling businessman took down a bunch of things. Most of them were rusty swords, and there were some bottles and cans. He looked like a rag collector. Hey, What kind of junk is this? Guwa squatted on the ground, looking at these rags with a look of disgust on his face. Even if it's rusty, it can still be used after polishing. After all, it's not our turn to have magical weapons, right? The traveling businessman said with a smile. No, your price is too expensive anyway. Guwa started to bargain. Li Huang didn't care. He looked at these things, and finally focused on those bottles and jars. He knelt down and looked at each one. However, these bottles and jars were not labeled, and they were tightly covered. Oops, Master Dao has a good eye. The traveling businessman smiled and quickly introduced, these are all good things. This is called half-step pouring. You only need to sprinkle a little bit into the water. It will definitely make people unable to reach the announcement before they fall. It's not expensive either, a bottle only costs 3 taels of silver. This is called heading hong. Same baby. It only takes as much as a fingernail to send someone to report to the underworld. A bottle of 5 taels of silver. And that one is even more precious. If you take one, you are guaranteed to have sex with 2 girls all night long. The businessman kept chattering. Li Huang was a little impatient and curled his lips and said, everything that comes into your mouth is a treasure. Come on, I want the first 2, Guwa, take the money. Dao Ye is grand, the traveling businessman smiled. Guwa gave the money with a distressed look on his face. Then, Li Huang ordered others to pick out a handy weapon. Anyway, having something is better than nothing. Immediately, except for Bai Ling Miao and except for Man, the rest of the people were eager to try it. They picked a weapon that was handy, and they were gesticulating there one by one, very excited. Don't worry about whether you can use it or not, at least it's very intimidating when you hold it in your hand. Only. Senior brother Li, these swords are still useful against thieves, but if they encounter evil spirits. Go Wa shook his head and said with emotion, if only we could learn Daniang's magical powers, then we wouldn't be afraid of anything. If you 0.6 want to learn, will others be willing to teach you? Besides. Li Huang curled his lips, thinking of Daniangzi using people to make elixirs, and the evil methods of Gen Temple, and curled his lips and said furthermore, even if others are willing to teach them, ordinary people may not dare to practice those magical powers. Go Wa smiled sheepishly, and then, I went to the creek with another person to sharpen my knife again. Finally, Li Huang and Bai Ling Miao made a plan. My dear, I'm almost out of money again. Everyone wanted to practice swordsmanship again, so they had more to eat. Therefore, the remaining money can last for a month at most. After 1 month, we will definitely be short of money again. Li Huang was a little speechless. Reading other fairy novels, the protagonist was never short of money, but when it came to him, he wanted to break a copper in half and spend it. So short of money. Money. Li Huang subconsciously glanced at the Lu family class and muttered, they must have made a lot of money along the way, right? If we rob them all, wouldn't the problem be solved? With this thought, Li Huang was stunned for an instant. I wipe myself, how could I have such thoughts? Not to mention Lu Zhuangyuan, he was still smooth and upright in his conduct. How could I possibly think of robbing him? Li Huang's face darkened, and he immediately thought of a person. Daniangzi. Was he so influenced by Daniangzi? A chill ran down his spine, and his previous guesses became more and more solid. I am really gradually being taken over by Daniangzi. If it's just his personality. Li Huang is even more worried that over time, he will completely turn into Daniangzi himself. At this moment, Li Huang became a little irritable. It seems that we have to find those sects to help deal with Daniangzi. Taking stock of the top 10 golden fingers, the protagonist of Wanjie went crazy. Author, Chirp. Chapter 367. At this time, along with the picture, Li Huang once again confirmed that Danyangzi was gradually assimilating to him, and his heart sank again. Immediately, countless people saw that Li Huang and others had arrived outside the customs, and the Lu family class also went back. Then, Li Huang and others met a disciple who was a great dancer. The disciples in this world are completely different from the disciples in other worlds. The disciples of this world have to sign something with the immortal family, and then they will have two gods. The two gods can solve some weird things. Although the strength is not very strong, it is still pretty good, better than ordinary people. However, this disciple was polite to Li Huang at first, but out of nowhere, this guy started to attract Li Huang's attention and wanted to kill Li Huang. If Li Huang hadn't been superior in skills, he would have been tricked by this guy. However, this disciple Li Ji said that he could not help himself. He had to listen to the Xian family for everything. Everything was forced by the Xian family. Li Huang was non-committal, and neither was Xian. However, from Li Ji's mouth, he suddenly heard his true situation again. Then Li Ji said, Li Huang is Xinsu. In the eyes of others, Li Huang is the meat of Tang monk. Anyone who sees it will want to take a bite. Today, Li Huang finally knows everything. Xinsu. He turned out to be Xinsu. What is Xinsu? Li Huang looked at the dying Li Ji in front of him and asked in a deep voice. The heart element has been transformed into shape since the beginning of time. The form has quality but has not yet become a body. This is called heart element. The heart is the beginning of quality but has not yet matured. Then Li Ji spoke quietly. However, Li Huang's face was full of confusion. What do you mean? He couldn't understand it at all. Li Ji said softly, this is what the Xian family told me. I'm a rough guy. I haven't studied for a few days, so I don't understand. But this is the first time I have seen those immortals succeed like this, so, I thought, Xinsu should be a good thing. Li Huang rubbed his face. Until now, he finally understood what those monks who had evil intentions before were planning on him. The co-authorship is because of his identity as Xinsu. Although he doesn't fully understand Xinsu. What does 28 represent, but he can probably guess that Xinsu is like Tang monk meat, everyone wants to take a bite. At this time, countless people in the world were a little surprised when they saw this scene. Xinsu? It finally came out. What kind of mentality did Li Huang have? Co-author Li Huang is actually Xinsu? By the way, what exactly is this mind element? Can anyone explain it? Yes, can anyone explain it? What is this mind element? Who can explain what Li Hinian said before? Well, this is what Li Ji said before, the person with the heart element, Taishi transformed into shape, the form has quality, but has not yet become the body, it is called the heart element. The heart is the beginning of quality but has not yet matured. The so-called Taishi is a formless and non-sensory existence. It is the chaotic state before the creation of the world. She is one of the 5 congenital queens. As for what will be explained later, that is to say, this mind element was formed by Taishi. To put it simply, it means that Taishi became essence, similar to the state of Wanjie. But it's not entirely true, because this Xinsu is a kind of power that has not yet been fully formed. In Li Huang's body, Li Huang became the so-called Xinsu. To put it simply, Taishi has substance, but it is not fully formed, which is the so-called mind. What would it become if it were fully formed? Is there any need to ask? Of course it's too vegetarian. Damn, is it okay if it's too plain? Shouldn't it become Taishi? Well, anyway, it's just the innate fifth wife and that's it. Innate fifth wife? What is this? Innate fifth wife? They are Tai, Taishu, Taishi, Taisu and Taiji. Among them, Tai is the state of boundless nothingness, and Taishu is the innate energy of invisible matter, a state more primitive than chaos. When it reaches Taishi, it transitions to the original state of form but no matter. Taisu is the original material state of form and matter. In Taiji, it becomes the state of the universe where yin and yang are not separated. Therefore, when Taishi has quality, he becomes Taisu, but Li Huang is just a person, not the universe, so he cannot be called Taisu, but can only be called Zinsu. Good guy, can you explain this? Cowhide, I can only say cowhide. Take a 6 alone. So, in the future, Li Huang will become part of the universe. Gee, I feel like it's against the heavens anyway. By the way, what is the power of this mind? I remember Li Huang was also a conceptual golden finger, right? This mind element should also be a type of concept. That's not very clear. Even Li Huang himself doesn't know it clearly. Can others still know it? By the way, if Li Huang's body is taken away, wouldn't he be able to control the universe with poor means? Take control of the world? Directly become the ultimate one. Lin Li gave a like. Lin Li, damn it, I didn't, don't talk nonsense. Are you so serious about co-writing? Damn it, it makes me want to seize Li Huang's body. Is there any point in seizing the body? I ate Li Huang directly. Are you devils? Li Huang's mind must be used to make elixirs? Maybe, the ultimate invincible golden elixir in the universe can be refined. This thing has to be handed over to me. Maybe I can develop some golden elixir that is rare in the world and is envied by all the worlds. Good guy, if Daniangzi had trained Li Huang, wouldn't Daniangzi take off? What a pity, I missed such a good opportunity. By the way, is it just alchemy? Can't you practice qi? Zinsu, possessing the power of Taishi, can directly refine weapons and refine them into magical weapons. Whether it is his bones or flesh and blood, they can be refined into magical weapons. Even human skin can be refined into magical weapons. If there is a Taishi artifact in hand, which can control Taishi's power, any innate spiritual treasure or innate treasure must be stepped aside. Refining weapons. Haha, I feel that I have to refine this heart element into a formation. Once the heart element formation is released, wouldn't it be a breakthrough? At this time, countless people in all the worlds were discussing with great interest. At the same time, in a vast world composed of 1,000 worlds. These guys are really devils, right? Li Changshao couldn't help but twitch at the corner of his mouth when he listened to the discussion of those guys on the Dao Golden List. Are these guys starting to discuss Li Huang's 100 refining methods? Devil, he is simply a devil. But Zinsu, this kind of thing has actually materialized in this world. What are the 5 innate Tai? Li Changshao can't understand it. In the past, these things were just concepts. No one had an idea. But now, I actually see the living and walking Taishi, one of the 5 innate Taishi. Although it is not necessarily the complete state of Taishi, it only contains part of Taishi's mind, but it is also very unnatural. This Li Huang must be can refine countless heaven-defying treasures. Li Changshao's expression suddenly changed. Damn, why did I think of this? How did I become the same as those guys? I am a good person. Yes, I am a good person. Wow, senior brother, no wonder people covet Li Huang. It turns out that Li Huang is a walking ginseng fruit. At this time, Ling Yi's eyes were shining brightly, and her eyes were full of little stars. As a person who cultivates immortality, how come he doesn't know what the 5th innate lady is? Li Changshao was speechless. Well, he is not the only co-author. You think so? I wonder what those saints think? Li Changshao thought. At this time, in the blue and white world, these guys who are cultivating immortals are really, Master Go snorted coldly, his face looking a little ugly. He also has mental power and can also communicate with the great Dao Gold List, so he naturally heard the discussions of those guys. He, who does not cultivate immortality, would naturally sneer at him. For these people who are cultivating immortals, this Li Huang is an excellent material, Mo Kyung also sighed. This evil spirit, Go Ye snorted dissatisfiedly. Treat people as materials to refine? Before, he was already unhappy enough just looking at Danyangzi. Now I find that countless people in the universe seem to be like this. Then it's just not fun. That's why we need to establish a blue and white order in the sky. Mo Kyung took a deep breath, his eyes a little cold. At this time, in the Dao Golden List, Li Huang finally knew that he was Zinsu. But after knowing it, he became even more confused. I have absolutely no idea what this heart factor actually means. I don't know what kind of power Zinsu has. There is no difference between knowing it and not knowing it. However, he finally understood why others coveted him and always made trouble for him. It's just the same sentence, knowing it is the same as not knowing it, there is no difference. He didn't even know how to hide his identity. Finally, when Li Ji was dying, he used his last strength and sighed. I remember, you wanted to exorcise evil spirits before, right? Go south and find a group of nuns in black clothes. They, reluctantly, a kind person, should be able to help you. Before Li Huang could ask clearly what sect this nun was, Li Ji had completely died. Well. Li Huang looked at Li Ji, whose eyes were dull, and sighed softly. This Li Ji is just a poor person controlled by the Xian family. The world is so hummed up. If you want to gain power, you have to pay a price. After that, Li Huang got something else in Li Ji's package, well, a piece of leather, which seemed to be the drum skin used by the master of dancing. It should be the spare drum skin of the master of dancing. Then there are half a dozen copper coins, and a gourd. The gourd was as big as 2 palms, and it looked like the gourd that holds elixirs like Danyangzi. Li Huang thought for a while, opened the stopper, and poured it out. However, there was no fart. Li Huang squinted his eyes and moved to the gourd's mouth, intending to look inside. However, unexpectedly, the gourd's mouth suddenly split open, and it bit Li Huang with its big white fangs. If Li Huang hadn't reacted very quickly, half of his face might have been bitten off by this gourd mouth. Take a closer look and see that the gourd is back to normal. What is this? Li Huang looked at the gourd in surprise. At this moment, the bell on Li Huang's waist thought. Li Huang's heart moved and he called out Mr. Yu. As soon as Mr. Yu explained, Li Huang was shocked at that time and his face was full of confusion. He looked at Mr. Yu. What the hell? What did you say? You said the gourd contains Yang Shao. How did Yang Shao become a thing? Li Huang couldn't figure it out, but he didn't think about it. Soon, under the instructions of Mr. Yu, Li Huang learned how to open the gourd. He raised the gourd high, pointed at the sun, and after a while, the mouth of the gourd opened like petals. Li Huang looked inside. Good guy 277, there really is something. 6 round and swollen pills with golden longevity characters. Moving, gourd seeds, and green viscous liquid, I don't know what it is used for. Li Huang carefully took out one. According to Mr. Yu's explanation, as long as Yang Shao comes into contact with any element of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, all the seeds will dissipate. To put it simply, if you drop it on the ground, it will be gone. If you knock it on the sword, it will be gone. If it touches a tree or a drop of water, it will be gone. So, you have to be more cautious. This Yang Shao Dan represents 1 year's lifespan for an ordinary person, can be said to be very precious. As for other values, he doesn't know. At this time, Yang Shao Dan was exposed to the air and soon began to evaporate. The yellow smoke filled the air. His whole body was shocked. Li Huang pressed it hard, and the next second, the Yang Shao pill entered his palm. In an instant, Li Huang felt relaxed all over. He had gained one more year of life. It's so magical. Does it mean that if I keep using this thing, I can live forever? Li Huang looked at this Yang Shao pill and was amazed. But then, he shook his head again. This thing should be very precious. Just by looking at Li Ji, you can tell. That guy is so old that he praised 6 Yang Shao pills. It can be seen that it is not easy to obtain Yang Shao Dan. And now, the meaning of Yang Shao Dan to Li Huang is, to feed Master Yu. Well, he also has a guy who eats Yang Shao. Alas. Soon, Li Huang will use that. After putting the gourd away and rummaging for a while, he realized that Li Ji was really poor. Except for the Yang Shao Dan, the rest were all miscellaneous items. As well as a few clay sculptures of Baiji Xian. Li Huang collected these clay sculptures. This thing should be those of the immortal family. He doesn't want others to become slaves of the immortal family. So, after thinking about it, forget it. Next. Li Huang thought about it and went south, planning to find those. Look at the nun in black. However, Chen Xiaoman's home is here, so Chen Xiaoman has to go home first. When we arrived in the city, Chen Xiaoman went home. But soon, she came back. She killed her father. For a moment, everyone eating was silent. Chen Xiaoman hated her father very much. She had a sister who was sold by his father to an old man in his 50s. At the beginning of the year, her sister died in childbirth. Yes. She was sold before. It can be said that in the eyes of her father, they are just goods. So, she killed her father. Now, she is back. She has nowhere to go, she can only go back. Okay, it's time for us to set off. After repairing, Li Huang took everyone on the road. Next step, the nunnery. Taking stock of the top 10 golden fingers, the protagonist of Wanjie went crazy. Author, Chirp. Chapter 368. At this time, countless people in the Dao Golden List looked at everything in the picture, and started discussing it again. Nunnery, what are you talking about? So the nunnery is the only good person? I feel that there are no good people in this world. Indeed, I also feel that there are no good people in this world. The so-called good people are probably just a little better than others. Even if it's just a little better than others, that's still a lot better. Indeed, people in this world are basically hummed up. If they were better, they could become saints. Do you think there is a possibility that Li Ji is actually deceiving Li Huang? He, we can't rule out this possibility. This world is so hummed up, damn it, if I went to this world, I wouldn't believe anyone's words. I don't believe it at all. This world is too hummed up. I just listen to what others say, even if they are evil. If it goes too far, I will treat everything in this world as malicious and enemies. At this time, countless people were looking at the golden list of the avenue and discussing. But at this moment, in the picture, Li Huang and his party started to set off on the road. However, before Li Huang and the others arrived at the nunnery, they were stopped by a large lake the way out. This lake is so big that it looks like the sea. Moreover, the water in the lake is very dark, like ink, which looks very weird. However, there are other people crossing the lake here. There are boats on the lake, those people all crossed the lake by boat. Naturally, Li Huang and others got on the boat. The price was not expensive, 70 pennies per person. Well, Li Huang definitely didn't care about the money. It was a dog. I felt distressed for a while. But I had no choice but to get on the boat. However, before reaching the other side, there was a new situation. The guy holding the boat jumped directly into the lake. It was only then that Li Huang came back to his senses. Well, the boss of this boat is also a man who seeks money and kills. Even if he doesn't kill, he will definitely seek money. In short, This boat is really a pirate ship. At this moment, several small wooden boats were seen coming from the reeds. When they rowed over in the middle of the swing, they saw that the boss of the boat earlier, with a group of people, holding weapons, looked at Li Huang and the others with a sneer. The boss of the boat felt that Li Huang was looking at him. He turned around and said with a smile, "Little house hung, do you want to eat hob noodles? Or wonton noodles? Hob noodles. Wonton noodles." Li Huang doesn't understand, and he doesn't need to understand. He only knows that these guys are not good birds. Haha, water bandit. This place really has simple folk customs. Li Huang looked at the ship boss and sneered. Whoosh, a feather arrow landed directly on the bow of the ship, scaring the ordinary people into panic. The boss of the ship started shouting again. "Well, if you only seek money, you will naturally not kill anyone. Of course, if someone hides the money, then it's not as simple as making money." Regarding this, Li Huang was neither sad nor happy. After the boat boss finished speaking, Li Huang said calmly, "Friend, just send the boat ashore honestly, and I will pretend that nothing happened." As soon as these words came out, the boss of the ship looked at Li Huang again. After a long time, he asked side by shoulder, swinging a shoulder. Obviously, this is some kind of industry slang. Naturally, Li Huang didn't understand. He frowned slightly and said, displeased, speaking in human terms. As soon as these words came out, those guys laughed instantly. "Well, you are a young kid who doesn't understand anything about feelings. What the hell, you don't understand anything, and you come here to pretend to be an uncle. Tisk." At this moment, everyone he mocked unscrupulously and looked at Li Huang with a sneer. Then, these guys took action. Li Huang looked at these water bandits coldly, and immediately. Ring ring ring. The bell rang instantly, and with the sound of the bell, Master Yu also appeared in front of Li Huang's eyes. Under Li Huang's order, Master Yu quickly rushed towards the water bandits. Any water bandit who was passed by Master Yu would his body stiffened and he fell into the water. After a while, there were already more than a dozen corpses floating on the water. These water bandits were completely frightened by being killed, and they all looked at Li Huang in horror. A man with a white beard, the old man, was supported and walked to the penetration of the search boat. He looked at Li Huang, frightened, and said in a trembling voice, "Master, these are dozens of lives of our Wanjie. If you, old man, were to sing your name earlier, how could we roughnecks dare to stop you?" Li Huang was too lazy to talk nonsense and ask people to punt the boat. He was too lazy to pay attention to those guys. However, when the old man saw this, he sighed and said with some sadness and anger, "The matter has come to this, it is useless to talk more, our lives are cheap, but it is not that easy to leave even if someone kills so many people in our UN family." The old man said, and then, a group of people began to kowtow, as if they were worshipping something. They also used pigs, cows, and sheep, and even threw children who were not even 2 months old into the water. This scene made everyone nervous. Li Huang frowned, and without saying a word, he shook the bell in his hand again. Mr. Yu appeared and quickly searched around under Li Huang's order. But not long after, Mr. Yu came back again and found nothing. Crunch, however, at this moment, there were bursts of strange noises coming from under the boat. "There's something under the water." Boom. The next second, the entire boat was overturned in the air by the huge force, and then hit the lake heavily. The wooden boat disintegrated directly and fell into pieces. A group of people were flapping in the lake in fear. Li Huang was even more shocked. Calmly, at a glance, he saw a blurry, huge black figure in the lake. No, there seemed to be more than one. Because, Li Huang suddenly saw 7 weird ones, flashing with strange reflections, the eyeballs opened suddenly. Those eyes were staring straight at Li Huang. What is this? When Li Huang saw those eyes, he suddenly had a strange feeling. It seemed that his thinking had become slow and dull. The monster was swimming and rising quickly. The thing was getting farther and farther away from Li Huang. It came closer and closer, and finally, a rotten mouth that was as big as a mountain opened. In that mouth, deep in the throat, densely packed black tentacles swept towards Li Huang. Li Huang's pupils shrank, and he pulled out with difficulty. However, before he could stab his neck with the long sword, the black tentacles instantly wrapped around him and dragged Li Huang towards the bloody mouth. Damn! Li Huang's face darkened at this time. On the lake, those water bandits looked at the lake that was still boiling before and was now gradually calming down. They all smiled and turned around and left. In their opinion, as long as He Bo is there, then Li Huang, there was definitely no chance of survival. Li Huang was dead. You didn't need to think about it to know that Li Huang was dead. They were very confident in He Bo. They left quickly. Of course, many people were lost in this incident. There is no doubt that it is the punishment that deserves it. However, at this moment, someone shouted in fear. "Grandpa, it's not good, go and see it quickly." The lake water turned red. With a shout, a group of people came to the reed swamp and looked at the lake. My goodness, it was really dyed red. Before, the lake was black, but now, with the addition of red, it became even more weird and eerie. The dark red lake water was filled with a fishy smell. For a moment, everyone panicked. Then, they turned their attention to the backbone of the village, their grandfather. That the old man's expression changed for a while, and then he shouted in a low voice, "Open the altar and light up the incense." After a while, the tributes were placed again, and a group of people knelt there, kneeling and worshipping in front of the lake. However, the lake was still the same, without any change at all. In this regard, the old man could only grit his teeth and hold a cinnabar pen. Walked up to the two children, and touched the children's eyebrows with a pen. The old man touched their heads, a little unbearable flashed in his eyes, and finally sighed. However, the others were about to throw the child into when we were in the lake. There was a splash in the lake. In full view of everyone, a soaked Taoist priest came up from the water. He lowered his head, his neck there seemed to be something stuck in it. At this moment, everyone's scalps were numb. If they looked carefully, well, there was a long sword surrounded by water plants stuck in the neck. How can it be? Those who knew Li Huang were present. The moment they saw Li Huang, their pupils shrank suddenly. They never expected that Li Huang was still alive. How is this possible? Is it fake? He was swallowed by their He Bo and still survived. This, are you kidding me? It's the joke of the century. Then, as soon as he could see it, the red-robed Taoist priest slowly raised his head and walked towards them step by step. "Quick, kill him! Kill him!" someone said in horror, looking at Li Huang in a panic. Swish swish, the next second, dozens of feather arrows blasted towards Li Huang. However, one missed. Then, a person who was very close was torn apart by Li Huang. In fact, after that, the people around him were picked apart one by Li Huang. The scene was bloody and terrifying. Finally, someone couldn't stand it anymore, and the anger in his eyes was completely replaced by fear. They finally understood what kind of person they had messed with. Grandpa was also in a panic. He whispered something to the lake. However, not long after, they saw huge pieces of flesh and blood floating slowly in the lake. At this moment, the grandfather, and even the others, could not help but see darkness. The He Bo they had worshipped for generations was just killed by that Taoist. Is this possible? At this time, everyone's hearts were trembling and they were very frightened. At this time, on the other side, Li Huang watched Danyangzi kill the water bandits one by one, slowly and torture. Every time he killed a person, his eyes became redder. In the end, even the road is no longer visible. Li Huang couldn't help shouting, "No need to kill. Don't kill." He shouted, trying to stop Daniangzi. Daniangzi killed someone, and it was him who was affected. However, he saw Daniangzi slowly turning around, with a cruel smile on his bloody face. "Baby, why?" "Yes. Why? Why do you mean what you say?" Li Huang opened his mouth, looked at the dark lake, and thought of his companions who didn't know whether they were alive or dead. For a moment, he didn't know how to refute. Influencing yourself is one aspect. On the other hand, why not kill? These guys killed their companions, couldn't I kill them? Why not kill? Why? Li Huang's face gradually became ferocious. When he came back to his senses, he found that Daniangzi had disappeared, and he himself appeared in Daniangzi's place. Then, Li Huang saw a fat woman crying in front of him. The fat woman was lying on the body of a man. Obviously, that man should be her husband. Li Huang looked at it blankly. At this moment, there was a sudden explosion in his ear. "Kill her." Li Huang was stunned. Sometimes, it's either or not to kill. Now that he has killed and started, he will kill his whole family, leaving no one alive. The cold words resounded in Li Huang's ears. A cold air spread from the tail vertebrae to the sky, and Li Huang shuddered. But in the end, he still gritted his teeth and waved with all his strength. Poof! What a big head soared into the sky, blood sprayed out, and fell on Li Huang's robe, making the clothes look even redder. Ha, ha ha, Li Huang smiled crazily, picked up the sword in his hand, and walked towards the reed village step by step. The bloody storm. Blood stained the entire reed field red. Screams, screams. Completely covered in blood. There were mutilated limbs and broken arms everywhere, and corpses everywhere. The fresh lives of Dezhou were withering away. As Li Huang killed more people, his laughter became louder. In the end, he laughed even more unscrupulously, and his wild laughter resounded throughout the village. It was getting dark, and there was no more shouting in the village. Only Li Huang stood in the ancestral hall of the Yuan family, holding a blood sword and leaning towards a skinny young man step by step. The young man was frightened and collapsed. He is already the last person on the island. He watched Li Huang kill his whole family, and watched Li Huang slaughter like crazy, and the whole village was filled with blood. He was frightened out of his mind. He was talking crazily and begging for mercy, but it was completely useless. Just when Li Huang was about to raise the long sword in his hand to know the life of this last guy. However, at this moment, a familiar shout suddenly came from behind Li Huang. Li Huang turned his head suddenly and saw Bai Lingmiao stood wetly by the door, with a fluorescent stone in his hand. Li Huang regained his clarity instantly, looked at Bai Lingmiao, and said in shock, "You are not dead. I know how to swim. There is a pond in my village and I have been playing in it since I was a child," Bai Lingmiao said. Then, Li Huang stepped forward, took off the blood-colored robe and put it on Bai Lingmiao. It was not until this moment that Li Huang woke up. Looking around again, he was completely silent. Old, from those who were 80 years old to those who were just born, they were all killed by Li Huang. At this moment, Li Huang's heart could not help but be shrouded in a haze. But when he learned that 3 of his companions who had shared life and death had died, 2 of them were missing. There were 12 people in the group, and there were 7 left. His face turned even darker. Especially, the fool who Li Huang had placed high hopes on was also dead, and Li Huang was even more furious. Haze. Negative. Guilt. Non-existent. These people deserve to humming die. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Taking stock of the top 10 golden fingers, the protagonist of Wanjie went crazy. Author, Chirp. Chapter 386. Is Li Huang just pretending? The murderer turned out to be Zhang Yingzi? At this moment, countless people in the world looked at everything that happened in the picture with bewildered faces, and then, there was an uproar. Good guy, Li Huang has grown up. He actually knows how to pretend. He actually uses his identity. It's simply terrifying. Before, Li Huang was said to be too immature, but now it seems that I am the one who is immature. Every time you suffer, you gain wisdom. Sure enough, Li Huang will still grow. Good guy, Li Huang's acting skills deceived me. I really thought Li Huang was in a hallucination. Tisk, in this kind of ghost world, if you don't have a few minds, you probably won't be able to survive. Indeed, after so much trouble, if you don't have a clear mind, you would be stupid. Tisk, this Zhang Yingzi looks so pitiful, but I didn't expect that he turns out to be a snake-hearted person. Tisk, how did she do it? It seems that it was Zhang Yingzi last time. I suddenly understand, I understand. It's scary to think about it. No, what do you understand? Ha ha ha, when you say that, I understand. Ha ha ha, that's it, it turns out that everything has a precursor. Damn it, what did you understand again? He hasn't said anything yet. So that's it, Lord Tao, I've realized it. Ha ha ha, Master Dao, I understand. Damn it, you humming riddlers, right? The riddler gets out of the world. Tisk, think about it carefully, what did these Nestorians do before? If you think about it more carefully, you will understand that it is so. Nestorian? Aren't these Nestorian guys all crazy? Wait, I understand too. I see. Damn it, are you so disgusting? What do you understand? What the hell are you talking about? Haha, think about it, the scene where those two guys from the Ao Nestorian church took Zhang Yingzi 663 away. Think again about Li Huang's deal with these people. Take Zhang Yingzi away? Trade. Can you explain it more clearly? Haha, don't you understand this? At the beginning, Li Huang completed the deal with these guys. Those guys also wanted to get something from Li Huang, which was Kang Sheng climb. Therefore, under normal circumstances, these guys would never treat Li Huang if they were tied up with interests. Take action, but then Zhang Yingzi took action, so they punished Zhang Yingzi. In fact, from beginning to end, they were fulfilling their agreement with Li Huang. They really followed the rules. Damn it, that's how it is, I finally understand it. Good guy, that's it? By the way, why? Does Zhang Yingzi have a grudge against Li Huang or something? A deadly attack. This is really a deadly move. Just give Li Huang a nail? Still thinking, if you can't die by swallowing a nail, why bother getting something poisonous on it? Worry, how much hatred? How much hate? At this time, countless people looked at everything that happened in the Dao Golden List, and none of them understood it very well. At this time, in the Dao Gui world, Li Huang's eyes were fixed on Zhang Yingzi in the picture. He doesn't know why. I have no grudges against Zhang Yingzi, so why do I want to kill him like this? Senior brother Li, did you kill his entire family? Go Wa hesitated and asked subconsciously. Fart, what kind of person is senior brother Li? You and I don't know yet? Besides, we have seen what senior brother Li did and everything that senior brother Li did. When did we kill her whole family? I think this woman is a lunatic. Zhao Wu curled his lips. This is also true. Go Wa nodded. They had been with Li Huang the whole time, and with the backtracking of the Dao Gold List, Li Huang had no chance to kill her whole family. So why? Why is Zhang Yingzi so cruel to Li Huang? Me, 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 Gao Zhejian stammered and looked at Li Huang, hesitating, wanting to say something. It's up to you. Senior brother Li is annoyed. Don't go up and give him eye drops. Go Wa pulled Gao Zhejian away and looked at Li Huang with serious sympathy. Although Li Huang seemed to be the most normal in the entire Qingfen temple, he was also the craziest. Not only did he have problems, others also wanted his life. What a tragedy! At this time, Li Huang didn't pay attention to anyone. He just looked at the Dao gold list and looked at Zhang Yingzi in the picture, his eyes full of coldness. Although he doesn't know Zhang Yingzi yet, he won't treat anyone. A person who wants to kill him has such a cool face. What a humming nail eater. This woman is so cruel. He subconsciously clenched his fists. At this moment, countless people in the world are looking at the Dao golden list. To be honest, they really don't understand why Zhang Yingzi did this. And in the screen, following Li Huang's questioning, Zhang Yingzi was stunned for a moment. She obviously didn't expect that Li Huang was actually faking it. But then, Zhang Yingzi suddenly laughed. Along with laughter, Zhang Yingzi slowly raised his head and looked at Li Huang. This was the first time she looked at Li Huang. She laughed and shed tears at the same time. And Li Huang could clearly feel the hatred in Zhang Yingzi's eyes. The hatred was so strong, so pure, as if he wanted to kill Li Huang immediately. Only then did Li Huang suddenly understand why Zhang Yingzi did not dare to look at him. The co-author was afraid that her hatred would be seen by Li Huang, and that she could not help but take action driven by that hatred. Wow! Almost at the same time, Li Huang and Zhang Yingzi opened the 2 volumes of Daqianlu in front of them at the same time. Poof! Li Huang's skin and flesh collided with Zhang Yingzi's tail phalange in an instant. Immediately, the 2 things fell to the ground so weakly. It is also Daqianlu. If you want to defeat the other party, you can only sacrifice more than the other party. Poof! Zhang Yingzi didn't hesitate and stepped directly on Daqianlu. With blood-red special words crawling all over the foot, Li Huang only felt his scalp numb. It's very dangerous. This woman is crazy. In order to kill herself, he really didn't care about any injuries. Li Huang retreated immediately. Jingle bell. The next second, he shook the bell directly. With the sound of the bell, everything around him was distorted. A master Yu quickly emerged from the ground, and then, with a swish, he directly passed through half of Zhang Yingzi's body. Boom! At this time, Zhang Yingzi, whose hands and feet were broken, fell heavily to the ground. Half of her body was unconscious and unable to move at all. But she still didn't give up. She gritted her teeth and struggled. Even after this, she still wanted to kill Li Huang. Li Huang frowned. What is the hatred or grudge? He didn't do anything bad to Zhang Yingzi. However, seeing Zhang Yingzi still struggling, Li Huang directly drew out his sword and pressed it against Zhang Yingzi's neck. Go up. He looked at Zhang Yingzi with some confusion. Why? Tell me why. Are those guys from the Nestorian Church threatening you with your relatives? From the beginning to the end, Li Huang didn't understand. He didn't understand what this Zhang Yingzi was for. Hatred. Where did the hatred come from? Why did he have enmity with this Zhang Yingzi? For Xinsu? It doesn't look like this Zhang Yingzi just wanted. Kill him. But it just doesn't make sense. Why? All he can think of is that Zhang Yingzi's family was coerced by the Nestorian Xiao. However, at this moment, footsteps came from around. You could see that the Aijing cult members were quickly surrounding them. Xiao San was among them. Do you think this is interesting? Breaking your promise again and again? Do you have to order Zhang Yingzi to deal with me? Come face to face if you have the ability. Li Huang gritted his teeth and looked at Shu San. To be honest, he was extremely disgusted with the Nestorian style. However, Shu-san was very confused and asked strangely, what are you talking about? I didn't give any orders to urge you. In fact, it won't do us any good to attack you. Li Huang didn't believe it. He felt that Shuzhen was still lying to him. However, at this moment, the deep female voice full of resentment sounded. Didn't you ask me why? Well, let me tell you why. Zhang Yingzi gritted his teeth and looked at Li Huang. He pulled off his robe, revealing his horribly injured body, and said in a cold voice, it's because you killed my whole family. All the hardships I am going through now are all thanks to you. Absurd. Li Huang snorted, feeling extremely ridiculous. Absurd? He. Zhang Yingzi pointed at the Aijing disciples around him. You always say that they are evil people, that they are inhuman beasts, but in front of you, they are nothing. Her voice was almost hoarse, her teeth were gritted, and she was extremely painful. 4 years ago, you were the one who killed the entire town. There are tens of thousands of people in the town. You killed them all. What kind of evil people did they do in front of you? They don't deserve it. What? Li Huang's mind roared, and then he subconsciously retorted, impossible. I'm different from these rubbish, I'm a good person. Good guy. Ha ha ha, good guy. Yes, yes, you are a good person, you are a good person. Zhang Yingzi smiled crazily, tears falling from her eyes again. The mother-in-law selling tofu, the child next door is less than a month old. And my parents. You killed them all without blinking an eye? At the end of the day, you call yourself a good person. Ha ha ha. Feeling the hatred in Zhang Yingzi's eyes, Li Huang frowned more and more, trying to recall his memories, but after searching through everything, he discovered that he did not travel through time 4 years ago, and he was not sick 4 years ago. 4 years ago, he was just a 14-year-old kid. Killing this guy's whole family? That's ridiculous. Not to mention whether he traveled through the body or the soul. Even if he traveled through the soul, the body here is only 14 years old. Killing Zhang Yingzi's whole family? Laughing to death. Is this possible? As for 4 years ago, what he remembers most deeply is that he participated in the sports meeting. So, impossible. Totally impossible. 4 years ago, I didn't travel through time at all, huh, Li Huang said, suddenly, as if he noticed something. For a moment, he hesitated and wavered. Did he really not travel through time 4 years ago? How long had he traveled through time? He was in a trance and wavered. Also at this moment, Zhang Yingzi looked stern. Seeing an opportunity, she clamped a handful of silver blades as thin as cicada wings, and planned to give Li Huang a fatal blow, and then, poof. She only felt a stroke of the long sword on her neck, and Zhang Yingzi's body froze instantly. Blood sprayed. She shook a few times and fell limply to the ground. It was only then that Li Huang came to his senses, hurriedly rushed forward, and hurriedly fed the blood-moistening pill. Hey, don't die. You are not allowed to die. Please tell me clearly, what is going on? He was a little anxious and really wanted to know the truth. Ha ha, good man. Zhang Yingzi looked at Li Huang with a sarcastic smile on her face. Finally, her hands fell weakly and her pupils were dilated. Have you had enough fun? You crazy people. Li Huang had a look on his face and shouted angrily at the surrounding Aojing sect members, if you want to steal Xinsu directly, is it interesting to lie to me? In response, Xiao San showed a playful smile on his face. It seems that you have really forgotten the past 4 years ago, that day 4 years ago, you did massacre the entire town, men, women, and children. Kill everyone on sight? The whole town was bleeding like a river. We saw that Elder 11 couldn't stand it and wanted to stop you, but you came to us to make a big fuss and destroyed many cross temples. It took us a long time to send you away. Stunned. At this moment, Li Huach was stunned. It's me? Killed the whole town? Is it me who killed Yingzi's whole family? He looked at his hands in disbelief. No, wrong. Li Huang suddenly got excited, stood up suddenly, and argued this is not right at all. It's not like this. 4 years ago, I didn't travel through time at all. Even if I did, I wouldn't be able to kill everyone in the town. Let alone I can't help but make a fuss with Nestorianism. I'm just an ordinary person. Ordinary people? Haha, do you think Zinsu is an ordinary person? Someone couldn't help but ridiculed. Li Huang's eyes turned red and he looked at the guy coldly. Seeing this, Shosun explained, logically speaking, I don't want to have too much contact with you. Who knows if you will meet halfway? Going crazy? If it weren't for Master Jingzin, we wouldn't bother to care about you. You shut up. Li Huang roared, don't try to lie to me. Don't you just want Zinsu? I'm right here, do it. Xiao San sighed, little friend Xianyang, calm down, I'm here to help you, you can't retaliate for kindness. From beginning to end, we have abided by the agreement, but Urju, that's why we punished her, do you understand? Xiao San said it as if it were true. The fear in Li Huang's eyes deepened. Thinking about everything he had experienced, a chill grew in his heart. Little friend Xianyang, although our Nestorian religion has a bad reputation, we are different from you. We do not kill people casually. Everything should be done right, Xiao San said. Impossible, absolutely impossible. Li 0.0 Huo roared, turned around and ran out of the cave. He staggered and sat down against a tree, his body shaking uncontrollably. Am I a murderous maniac? Am I a more hateful beast than Danyangzi? Did I really kill Yingzi's whole family? And killed the revengeful Yingzi? Li Huang murmured. Intense pain filled his mind. At this moment, the sound of footsteps came. Xiao San patted Li Huang's shoulder and sighed, little friend Xianyang? Are you leaving? So does what we said before still count? Li Huang's eyes widened and he stood up suddenly. I didn't destroy that town, I'm going to find evidence right now. With that said, Li Huang ran directly down the mountain. There was no other way. Xiao San and an elder named Shen Benaya could only follow. Finally, when they arrived in the dead town, Li Huang began to rummage. Soon, his eyes it was getting brighter and brighter, and many remains were found. Some were beaten to death with blunt instruments, some were burned to death, and some were half-bodies still stuck in the wall. These were simply not something he could do. Seeing this, Li Huang getting more and more relaxed. It's not me, I didn't kill anyone. Yingzi simply remembered it wrong. Li Huang breathed a sigh of relief. But why did Yingzi admit his mistake? Could it be that the evil man looks exactly like him? Well, if that's the case, it would be troublesome. Li Huang thought about it and walked to a decaying wooden house. A piece of paper caught Li Huang's attention. He was confused and slowly picked up the paper. It seemed to be written with blood. It had been so long that it was a little unclear. In addition, Li Huang didn't recognize many words. But there are 3 words that he is very familiar with. Li Huang. When he looked at those 3 words, his pupils shrank suddenly, and his mind felt like a bolt from the blue. Taking stock of the top 10 golden fingers, the protagonist of Wanjie went crazy. Author, Chirp. Chapter 387. Good guy, I call you good guy. Was it really Li Huang who did it? No way. No way. Did Li Huang really do it? 4 years ago? Li Huang traveled through time 4 years ago. Is it just that he doesn't know it? Is there a possibility? I mean possibility. In fact, Li Huang traveled to this world after his death, and grew up from birth. It's just that from the beginning to the end, he was in the hallucination of the real world, and he didn't know what was going on here, so he grew up like this. When he finally regained consciousness, he was taken away by Danyangzi. When you say that, my scalp goes numb. No way. When you say that, it seems to make sense. So, is it really Li Huoang's doing? No, I still don't believe it. How did those people know about Li Huoang? Li Huoang kills people, is it possible that he still needs to tell others his name? There is no way Li Huoang wrote it himself. I always feel like there's something very strange about this. I also feel that there is something strange in this, and some logic does not make sense. Indeed, it makes no sense at all. I can only say that there is something we don't know. At this time, countless people were discussing, looking at the Dao gold list one by one, feeling inexplicable and a little weird. Who did Li Huoang kill? This doesn't make sense. Why do others know Li Huoang? Why do others write it in blood? Li Huoang's name? It's simply ridiculous. It's really ridiculous. But it's ridiculous, and everyone is confused. What if it's really Li Huoang? What if, before, when Li Huoang went crazy, he stayed in this town, and some people do you know Li Huoang? Then, is it not impossible that Li Huoang went crazy and killed everyone? At this time, everyone looked at him in surprise. At the same time, in the world of Daogui, on the road, all the Qingfeng Wanjie brothers who were watching looked at everything that happened in the picture. They were all silent and silent. Really, it was senior brother Li who killed him. Everyone looked at Li Huoang with strange faces. What kind of person was senior brother Li before? So 07 cruel? Massacred the entire town? Simply, they didn't know what to say for a moment. Fake, all fake. It was definitely not me who killed him, Li Huoang denied it. Even though he saw himself holding the blood book in the picture and looking at the words on the blood book, he still didn't believe it. Yes, it must be fake. We know very well what kind of person senior brother Li is. Someone must be framing senior brother Li, and someone must be deceiving senior brother Li. Guhua also nodded and agreed. Ken, 4. Gao's Hejian was a little confused. He wanted to say, what's the point of others deceiving Li Huoang? Why bother? For what? It's a lie. It's important for a reason, right? Why? Fool, this kind of causal relationship is not something you should worry about. You just need to know that senior brother Li is a good person. Go Wa said, and then pulled Gao's Hejian to leave quickly. Well, let go. Good, people, Gao's Hejian looked at Li Huoang, then at the Dao gold list, and was silent for a moment. After this period of experience, he naturally understood what kind of person Li Huoang was. But the more he understood, the more confused he became. In his mind, the image of him being killed by Li Huoang flashed across his mind, which really made him tangled. Is the thing in his mind true or false? Or is he actually a Zinsu? Subconsciously, he turned back again and looked at Li Huoang with a gloomy face. His heart skipped a beat. This Li Huoang was so similar to the Li Huoang in his memory. He seemed to be trying to kill someone. Subconsciously, he raised his head again and looked at Li Huoang in the golden list of the Great Dao. He always felt that this golden list of the Great Dao can give him an answer. At the same time, the world is cold. The narrow space of time. The team of time travelers from the blue and white world have gathered. Master Go, Sister Yu, Mo Kaiang, Zhang Long, Luo Yan, Nezat, Li Jing. A group of people were standing at the door. I originally planned to go directly to the task, but then I saw the reversal in the Dao golden list. Good guy. This Li Huoang was set up by someone. Luo Yan looked at everything that happened in the Dao golden list in amazement. He could tell at a glance that Li Huoang was probably being tricked. As for the blood letter or something like that, he didn't believe it at all. There is, and there is only one. One possibility is that Li Huang was tricked by someone. Finished? Who plays so big a game? Have you been doing this since 4 years ago? Targeting Li Huang? Or is there someone who can see through the future and is just waiting for Li Huang? I don't feel like it's a game. There has to be a purpose. If it's really a game, what's the purpose of those people, Zhang Longdao? Obviously, our prerequisites have not been unlocked enough. We will know when we have enough prerequisites, Luo Yan chuckled, but he still insisted that Li Huang was outed. Okay, it doesn't matter whether you're in the game or not. What we have to do now is to find little King Kong, Master Go said, grab the door handle directly, and then open the door with a click. Then, they saw Time Chicken sitting in front of the computer, typing frantically on the keyboard. The computer display in front of him kept flashing images. He seemed to be looking for something. He was so focused that he didn't even know they were opening the door. Not to mention Mo Kyung and the others, he didn't even pay attention to the Dao gold list. Time Chicken, Li Jing spoke first. Here, he is the only one who is familiar with Time Chicken, and the others are really not familiar with each other. However, Time Chicken didn't seem to hear anything, and continued to type on the keyboard, muttering, "Where are we going? Already? Where did it go? Time Chicken? What happened?" Li Jing frowned, took 2 steps forward, and patted Time Chicken on the shoulder. "Well." Shi Guang paused and turned his head stiffly. When he saw Li Jing, Neza, Mo Kyung and many other people, he just sighed listlessly. "It's you, sit down by yourself, I won't entertain you. Got it?" And Li Jing was shocked when he saw the Time Chicken. At this time, the Time Chicken looked haggard and decadent, as if he hadn't bathed for several days. His whole body exuded a sour odor, and his hair was frizzy. "Time Chicken, what happened?" Li Jing frowned and asked immediately. Time Chicken opened his mouth, hesitated, wanted to say something, and sighed again. His eyes were dull and a little desperate. "What happened?" Li Jing asked again. Stop asking, Lin Bei, I'm so annoyed, the Time Chicken is going crazy. What happened? Maybe, we can help." Mo Kyung took a step forward and asked. "Help? Who do you think you are?" "Help," Shijiji glanced at Mo Kyung and the others. His eyes were full of strangers. Seeing this reaction, Mo Kyung and others looked at each other and noticed something unusual. With Mo Kyung's popularity now, not to mention everyone in the world, at least most people know him. But at this time, Shijiji, but his eyes are full of strangers. Then there is only one possibility. Time Chicken has not paid attention to the Dao gold list during this period of time. How can this guy be dedicated? Obviously impossible. This guy's character is that he can fish. When fishing, he can be lazy if he can. When he has nothing to do, he should look at the golden list of the great Dao. That's what he should do. If he doesn't look at the golden list of the great Dao and is still so haggard, something big may happen. So, what happened? Mo Kyung, he frowned, thought for a while, and immediately asked, "We are here to find little King Kong, do you know where little King Kong is?" To be honest, Mo Kyung and the others actually went to the Temple of Time and Space before, hoping to find little King Kong directly. But they couldn't find it, so they came to the narrow space of time. Mo Kyung wanted to locate it, but it wasn't that he couldn't locate it. The main thing is that there are no photos. The devil knows why there are no photos of Xiao Jinggang at home. This is outrageous. So, they found this place. It's just. When Time Chicken heard Mo Kyung's words, his eyes widened and his face changed. Suddenly, he frowned and looked at Mo Kyung, asking in a deep voice, "Why are you looking for little King Kong? What happened to little King Kong?" Mo Kyung glanced at various pictures on the computer and asked keenly. Time Chicken's expression changed, and then he sat down on the chair with a dejected look. Little King Kong has disappeared. Amo Kyung? Everyone? What the hell? At this moment, everyone was really shocked, looking at the Time Chicken with bewildered faces. It's true, Little King Kong disappeared so suddenly a few days ago. Not only has he disappeared from reality, it seems that even historical fragments have disappeared. I have adjusted countless historical fragments, even the fragments of Xiao Jin's birth, but I can't find him. He has really disappeared. Time Chicken is bitter, with a look of loneliness on his face. He was looking for Little King Kong earlier. Little King Kong, has he really disappeared? How can this be? Isn't he the manager of time and space? How could it disappear? Amo Kyung frowned. I don't want him to disappear either. Once he disappears, chaos will occur in all time and space. Time Chicken wants to cry but has no tears. He is the main protagonist of our universe. Once he disappears, the chaos of time and space will be a trivial matter. Maybe, time and space will be destroyed because of this. Oh, wait, by the way, who are you? Why are you looking for Little King Kong? Suddenly, Time Chicken seemed to have just come to his senses. He frowned and looked at Amo Kyung and others. Amo Kyung and others smiled, thought about it, and Amo Kyung said, "Didn't you, Little King Kong, disappear? Show me his picture and I'll find it for you." You. Shijiji looked Amo Kyung up and down, with disbelief on his face. "You are immortal, how dare you say this? Can you find someone who even Lin Bei can't find?" Amo Kyung grinned. He really wanted to beat this chicken, but after thinking about it, he decided not to do it. "Just send me pictures," Amo Kyung asked for it. Time Chicken, "Just trust this little brother Mo. I'm not sure about other aspects, but little brother Mo is definitely very effective in recruiting people." Li Jing also followed suit and said, "Ha, young man, it's not that I don't believe you. If you can find Little King Kong, I can kneel down and lick your shoes," Time Chicken sneered. "There's no need to lick shoes, we have business to do with Little King Kong," Amo Kyung said with a smile. "Now, you want a photo, right? Here it is," Shijiji said, and handed a photo to Amo Kyung. Amo Kyung took it and took a look, and then he felt numb. That's it, he looked at the photo, which was full of golden and white mosaics, and the corners of his mouth twitched crazily. "Otherwise, what do you think?" Time Chicken pouted. "I traced back history and even discovered that Little King Kong was disappearing in every time and space, every universe and every timeline, and photos, etc., even related to Little King Kong, have become like this." Amo Kyung's face turned dark. "How about it? Can it be located?" Mr. Go asked. "Are you asking me to locate a golden block? Or is it a Little King Kong that looks like this mosaic?" Amo Kyung asked quietly. There is a restriction on Amo Kyung's positioning. That is, he has to know what that thing looks like. Even if it is just something he imagined out of thin air. It's like the 10 Days universe. That's what he thought at the time. That kind of universe, and then, after searching in all the heavens and worlds, there really is such a universe. It is indeed difficult to find a needle in a haystack, but as long as there is a needle, you can find it. 010 and Amo Kyung, as long as he has seen the needle, he can find it. But now, if you ask him to find something that he has never seen before, which is mosaic, how will he find it? There is another way, Luo Yan said suddenly. Everyone looked at Amo Kyung. It's actually very simple. Luo Yan said, "We have actually seen Little King Kong, the previous Little King Kong. That Little King Kong must be related to the current Little King Kong, so the face must be the same. We just need to ask about the current Little King Kong's appearance. Just put the features together and position them, and you'll be good to go." Everyone nodded. This is true. Immediately, Mo Kyung asked Time Chicken carefully about the appearance of little King Kong. Although Time Chicken was puzzled, he finally said it. Immediately afterwards, a face appeared in everyone's mind, the face of the little King Kong before. However, this little King Kong's hair was golden, and the long golden hair was disheveled, very chic. There are also purple gourd pendants on the ears. Wearing a black and white robe, gold wristbands, belt, and boots. And those red eyes. The image of little King Kong comes to life on paper. How about it? Is it clear? Everyone looked at Mo Kyung again. Give it a try, Mo Kyung said, and breathed out gently. The gas was long and leisurely, gently blowing the paper on the table. Mo Kyung looked at the blown paper in a daze, and was stunned. The rest of the people were also silent. What does this mean? Either Mo Kyung's knowledge of the little King Kong is inaccurate, making it impossible to locate it. Or, that is, the little King Kong really disappeared. Moreover, it still disappeared from all the heavens and worlds. Even in parallel worlds, even just there is no one who looks like little King Kong, but is not named little King Kong. What to do? Mo Kyung looked at everyone. Everyone just sighed, frowned, and remained silent, feeling that something was a bit difficult. What about the little King Kong we know? Luo Yan asked again. Mo Kyung tried, and then found that the energy was still swirling in front of him. There was no doubt that the little King Kong they knew had also disappeared. This also proved that the little King Kong was indeed a later one. The manager of time and space, Lord Little King Kong. But it's meaningless to talk about this now. The most important thing is that little King Kong has disappeared. I don't know if little King Kong will be included in this golden list of great avenues, Mo Kyung sighed. He is far less powerful now than he will be in the future. To be honest, he is really at his wit's end now, so subconsciously, he looked at the great Dao gold list. People like little King Kong? Will it be on the list? It would be great if it made the list. But, regardless of whether little King Kong is on the list or not, they can't see it now, because it is Li Huang's special show in the Dao Golden List.